Good afternoon and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Sandown International Motor Raceway, wedged in a lovely little green section between Springvale and Dandenong here in the southeast of Melbourne. You have joined us at the 888 Home Loans Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships, and we are looking forward to a fantastic weekend of racing. Practice and qualifying already done. Practice yesterday, qualifying this morning, except for one category. And you'd have to say our feature category for this event, the Saloon Car Nationals. They've already had a heat race yesterday, and they have got a packed program of racing to take us right throughout the weekend. Dan McCarthy will be bringing us up to date with all the specialised information on the saloon cars as we go throughout this weekend. Improved Production will be our first race for the weekend, and we're looking forward to seeing those cars out on track. Great field of Improved Production cars as always, and they'll be first on track. The Vic V8s join us here at this round, the absence of the sports sedans, because the Australian Sports Sedan Association of Victoria is the promoter and organisers of this event. So if you're wandering around the pit lane and grid and paddock area and you look like there's some race drivers fulfilling officials' jobs, that's exactly what it is. The sports sedan drivers and teams and crews give back very, very generously to the Victorian motor racing scene every year with this round, and they do a terrific job with it. So Vic V8s will be our second race on the program. Greg Lynch, one of the drivers from both sports sedans and Vic V8s, will be joining us in the commentary booth. Saloon cars will be the next race on track. Formula Ford is the next lot. Let's have a look at the Sandown International Motor Raceway layout. Action Zone 1, Turn 1, and that is it. Big load on the right front tyre, massive load on the right front tyre in every form of category of cars here. It really is the all-important right front tyre here. Down through Turn 2 and 3, a little bit of a Mickey Mouse bit of track down there. It's not the driver's favourite. They bounce off curbs and can potentially hit the outside wall there. We run right up the awesome back straight here at Sandown and turn at the gum tree at the top of the hill there and just power on down into a Dandenong Road. And then it's a little wobble and a wiggle and a straight, and we're back on the straight here at Sandown International. So after the Formula Fords will be the Porsche 944s and the 1-800 Lasagna guys out there. Love watching the 1-800 Lasagna Porsches. So Jack Atley will join me for that one. Formula V and BMW E30 will round it out for today. We'll open the gates nice and early tomorrow morning and get underway at 9:10 with the racing. Plenty to watch, plenty of different interest points to be watching right throughout this weekend. I believe they were just up on the screen. We might run through them. I'm Darren Smith, right next to me, Heath McAlpine. Heath, looking forward to round 4 of the state championship. Doesn't seem that long ago we're at round 2 at Winton, does it? No, it doesn't. And the weather is threatening, as it normally does here late winter in Victoria. But with fingers crossed and toes crossed, we've got dry conditions for this afternoon. Touching on the Saloon Car Nationals, the Right Way Saloon Car Nationals, field of 36 from right across this big brown land of ours. The National Formula Fords, this is a very hot battle. Hillier and Lobco have been both off some Toyota 86 racing as well in recent times, so they've had very, very heavy loads. The Vic V8s, as I touched on, it's going to be good to have them. Was this round last year, I think it was, that the Mentone Premix XA Falcon tried to jump over the fence here off the grid. And Vic Formula Ford as well in the mix there, so lots of points starting to come in here. Absolutely, and current conditions here, it's 14.7 degrees with a 65% chance of humidity. Yes, 65% and humidity. Not much wind here at the moment, so fingers crossed. It looks like we had a look at the radar prior to broadcast starting, and it looks like all the bad weather's going to miss us. Let's hope so. Here is the calendar. Of course, we started off here at Sandown. We moved on up to Winton and down to Phillip Island in late May. This is round 4 out of 5/ maybe 6. It looks like there's no to be confirmed next to Calder anymore. Be interesting to have that particular track back on the Victorian motor racing scene. and recently spoke to Rowan Harmon on the Grassroots Racing podcast, Heath, and he was pretty excited that they're going to be getting that track back, at least available to national and state type racing. So Phillip Island on the 22nd, 24th September, potentially 27th and 29th of October at Calder. And as it says there on the screen, live and free on Blendline TV.
I can't wait to go back to racing at Calder Park. I was there, the last time I was there, we watched Ken Block do some donuts and drive a V8 supercar there. So, you know, it's going to be good to see it back and where it belongs on the with cars racing on it.
Interesting you say that. The last time I was there, I nearly put a strut tower through the bonnet of the race car. It was that bumpy. So for those that are going to be racing there, I reckon you bring your very best suspension guru, because it's going to be like a mogul field at Mount Buller this weekend, with the snow finally falling and all the Melbourne supporters heading up in their Range Rovers to the snowfields. And
also, I'd love to see the next step be bring back the Thunderdome. That'd be cool.
Totally agree with that. The Thunderdome, I miss the Thunderdome a lot. And I like your segue there too, Heath. If you clock onto Grassroots Racing podcast brought to you by Race Fuels this week is Terry Wyhoon. He talks very nicely about the Thunderdome and he's really enjoyed his time there. And obviously that's where he made his way. We are waiting for cars to come out on track here for the Saturday afternoon racing of round 4, and we send a very big thanks and a cheers to the Australian Sports Sedan Association of Victoria for promoting this round. In the past, for those that have been around a while, it was known as the hot dog round. The queen of Victorian motorsport, Anne Gilliland, used to cook up a whole lot of hot dogs and serve them up. Those days have gone for now, but certainly the Sports Sedan Association turn on a great event, as we do right across the 5/ or 6 rounds of the championship every single year. So an interesting thing about the calendar is that each different event is, I guess, brought to you and promoted by a different club and a cooperative society. Everyone gets together and pools the resources, and the Winton and Calder round are run with a conglomeration of all the clubs. So it is, I guess, what keeps motorsport going, these sort of state series, with car clubs being involved and promoting them and different bits and pieces like that. So it's certainly a happy and traditional home for the great racing of Victorian motorsport. Improved production cars are sort of supposed to be making their way out on track. Of course, we don't go racing without any of our volunteers. The volunteers right around the track. I just touched on the Sports Sedan members. You'll see most of them around the grid and around the main paddock area, which is what most of the time when promoters do events, you'll see them all shod in their high views Australian Sports Sedan Association vests down there, waiting for the cars to come around. Our flag marshalling team, of course, the medical crew, Vic Fire and Rescue, I think Pike Recovery are operating here as well. So a massive group of people. I don't like using the word army because that has different connotations, but a massive group of people getting together here. We've got some of the Victorian flag marshalling team down there. They are looking after all the flags, and I guess they're the ones that get the most attention, aren't they? Because they're the ones that are directly communicating straight into the helmets of the drivers.
Of course, and also, you know, it's great to have such a team of people to come together from all walks of life to come and make sure this meeting runs smoothly.
Well, we might take a quick look at an interview done with Mr. Cornell in his WRX, who will be out on track in the not too distant future for race 1 for the improved production. Back in a moment.
Here with Paul Cornell, who's going to debut this weekend in improved production. What are your expectations in the category?
Keep it straight and have some fun. That's my biggest expectations.
Why'd you choose improved production, particularly in a Subaru? Don't see many of them in improved production.
I thought it'd be a good challenge. There seems to be a lot of different cars out there, and you got the V8s, but yeah, there's a few cars out there I reckon I can compete with, so it'll be good fun.
As you say, there's quite a few V8s. This is a big power track, so yeah, what are you expecting from your first weekend?
Finish all the races. That'd be a really good thing. I mean, that's the main thing I'm looking for, and have some fun and enjoy the people. Yeah.
You're new to improved production, but as you were saying to me just before, you've driven this car quite a bit, so give us a bit of history and background on you racing with this car.
I've done a lot of Tim Top racing up around Winton, Wakefield Park. We've taken it up to Sydney Motorsport Park. We took it over to the Bend. Yeah, so that's the history, and I bought it off Kevin Steuben. It used to be Bathurst 6-hour car. So,
What are your thoughts on the Sandown track?
awesome place. Yeah, facility's good, track's good, track's fast. So yeah, looking forward to racing tomorrow to see how we go.
Awesome, thanks very much.
No, awesome. Thank you very much, guys, and have a good weekend.
Welcome back, and I think we're about to nearly get the cars out of the dummy grid and hit the track. We've got Steve DeVries, expert of improved production in Victoria here. How are you going, Steve?
Going well, thanks, mate. Going very, very well. It's been 3 months since the last state round in May. It feels like it was much, much longer ago than the end of May down at Phillip Island. So it's good to be back. It's absolutely good to be back, and here we have a bit of a look at what the improved production grid is going to be for race 1. First cabs off the rank this afternoon. Danny Timewell, late pole for him in qualifying ahead of Jared Tonks, who'd sort of put the queue in the rack with about 5 minutes to go in the session, thinking that an 18 flat was enough. And then Danny finally made his way through the traffic and was able to pop in a 17.7 to snatch the pole on the last flying lap. Damien Milano and Luke Gretsch-Cumbo, 2 Holden pilots as well there on the second row of the grid. So 4 Holdens on the first 2 rows of the grid. You can actually make it 7 Holdens in the top 7 there, because you've got Matty Logan in the Mack Trucks VE Commodore in 5th, Neil Crow in 6th in the VH ex-Commodore Cup machine, Jin Wook Song, who's been new to the category this year, out of 7th. And then you've got the number 106 there of McLean in the Commodore. It's a new entry for this weekend as well. Good to see the timing gentlemen upstairs or downstairs, wherever they happen to be, have actually corrected that for us, because earlier in the day it was showing up as TBA. We had no idea who that gentleman was in that car, so it's good to see that McLean in the 106 is up and running. You'll notice that car when it goes around, because it has no rear wing, but it does have the rear wing end strut still sitting there as if it's ready to accept a new piece of bodywork.
And we've finally got some other makes. We've got 2 Fords on the 5th row of the grid with Grant Ogle in the Ford Focus. He's been competing for quite some time in that car, and Stuart Dearden in his EBS, which I think they made a homologation special back in the day based on that car for production car racing. Yeah,
they did back in the day as well. Stewie's actually had done a Barra conversion on that car. He's one of several people that have actually picked up those, those EAs and those EB Falcons and, done the Barra conversion to put the better motor in for a bit better circuit racing. Takes it away from being competitive in a saloon car category, and then steps it up into, more of a bespoke sort of improved production category. You've got Ian McLennan in the Pro Cut Tree Services Monaro starting 11th, which is a little bit of controversy around why he's starting a bit further down the order, but we will talk about that as the racing goes on. And then the first of the under 2 litre cars is Peter McLean in the Wandon Engineering Subaru BRZ, which is the car formerly campaigned by Stephen Zorkis before he switched over to the ex-Jordan Cox Honda Civic, and he's going to start out of 12th ahead of Paul Cornell, who just had that interview with Dan McCarthy a few moments ago, which is a great story, having something a little bit different in the field. And he would have been liking the conditions when he saw in qualifying this morning, because it was quite greasy. So the 4-wheel drive was actually not too bad a car to have, but as the session wore on, it inevitably went in favour of the bigger V8s as the track got grippier and the track started to get a bit drier.
Yeah, and then we've got Wayne Decker in his Audi 80 Quattro. He's been a regular for a long time in that car as well. Dare say he would have been liking the conditions this morning as well.
Yeah, he wasn't too bad in the conditions as well, and I actually got him in a little bit of trouble earlier in the year, because he said to me, I'm building a new car, and then I had the audacity to mention on the broadcast, and certain people that didn't know then quizzed him when he got home. So he was very, very much, I'm going to be very careful what I say to you now. Finishing up the grid, we've got Brad Ross in the Ford EA Falcon. Andre Noy, he's also in a Ford Falcon. It's another one that's been brought into the category as a newcomer for this round. And then we've got a handful of the XLs that are competing, 3 on the screen there. You can see Scott Appledore, who's a regular in both the XLs and in improved production. He dual enters most weekends. Connor McLeod and Peter Fleming, also in XLs. They're sort of surrounded by Richard Valentich in the RPV Electrics LH Tirana, whose radiator cap actually popped off during qualifying. And then the last of the cars on the grid and the fourth XL in the field is Carly Fleming, also in an XL.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that LH Tirana goes. I'm very privy to old school Holdens, so hopefully it can slide its way through those fields, or at least past those XLs in front.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be too much of an effort for Richard to move past the XLs and sort of latch onto the back of the cars that are in front of him, but it's about how much more progress he can make after that. You know, you got Peter McLean will be the next one in the BRZ that probably he'll be able to get past at a reasonable pace as here they come down the chute towards the Dandenong Road sequence of corners. Turn 6 coming up here.
As a Holden fan of old, this is really right up my alley. You know, the first 8 cars, or seven or 8 cars, Holdens, all different models as well, so that's the great thing about improved production. There's VE Commodores, there's VF Commodores, VHs from the 1980s, and there's also the various in between too.
And not to mention the Monaros and the Senators and all those different sort of body shapes and styles that came around throughout that, you know, that late 1990s and 2000s periods, where they all ended up having a V8 power plant under the bonnet. But it's just good to see so many different body styles, but all with a sort of similar looking power plant underneath. Now, this place has been a happy hunting ground for the man on pole position. Earlier in the year, he took his first podium, then followed by his first race win, then followed by his first round win, all in the same weekend for Danny Timewell, and he really pushed Luke Gretschkambo all weekend long. So he returns here with some happy memories, and starting on the front row of the grid, he'll definitely have a smile on his face aboard that Prestige Hino VF Commodore.
And also that team had done a lot of work because their previous car got written off at Sydney Motorsport Park at that support race, supporting the supercars there. So those guys have done a whole lot of work to reshell and even further develop what they already had as well.
That's right, and Jared McLeod in their corner as well, who knows Holdens extremely well, providing some driver coaching advice to Danny. They also shifted away from the 265mm wide tyre back to the 255 because they sort of weren't feeling that it was the right decision to make, and it's paid dividends. So they pioneered that for about 12 months, and now they've gone back to something that gives them a little less rubber width-wise under the car, but it seems to be performing much better, and it's in a much sort of happier zone.
I tell you what, the presentation of these cars is really, really good too, as well.
There is a car missing there as well, next to Grant Ogle, which looks like it might be the Stuart Dearden Falcon. I think he might be out of position and may have had to come in and start from pit lane. So we now await the starting lights for the Prestige Hino improved production cars. 21 of them on the grid. There's the 5-second board just being held out now, so we're not too far away from a race start. Time certain, so as many laps as possible, plus 1 lap, and away we go. Danny Timewell, good launch off the front row of the grid. Likewise, Jared Tonks. They both reacted very, very well to the lights, and there is a slow car away at the back of the field. It's one of the XLs that will slowly get going. Hopefully they can get going and get off the track safely if they're too slow for the rest of the field. As they pour into turn 1, top 2 rows look like they got through okay. Neil Crow's picked up a spot here, rounding up Matt Logan in the VE Commodore, the Mack Trucks entry, heading into turn 1. Jared Tonks now has rounded up Danny Timewell just before the turn 2-3.
Crow made the best start out of the first 3 rows. He was already challenging the guys on the second row into turn 1 as well. As we see the cars come through turn 4, it looks like everyone's made it through safely on this first lap, first few sections of corner.
Oh, someone's spinning out there. Zach McLean in the 106. I think he's just wandered off the track or gone a little bit too close to the grass there. He's done a full pirouette 360, and there's a couple of cars that have slowed up there as well, so I'm wondering if something else might have gone on, because Jared Tonks has dropped like a stone. He was out in front, and he's fallen right off the back of this leading group, so something's happened not only to Jared Tonks' rod and gun number 91, but then there was, I'm not sure if there was a knock-on effect, and then the 106 Commodore down the back chute.
And the safety car hasn't been called, so we're still going with Tomo leading Gretschkambo and Damien Milano in third as well.
Here's the replay. Yeah, you can see there's a... lost it all on his own. So Tonks was already slow, but he was well clear, and it looks like McLean has just had a moment all on his own, maybe just lit the rear end up a little bit too much, or maybe caught out by a bump in the middle of the circuit there, and just hasn't been able to catch that car.
And it's a shame for Tonks as well. It appears he's dropped out of the race, but it leaves a really good battle for second as Gretsch Combo and Damien Milano are just side by side down the back straight.
There'll be a change of position here. Milano goes through. Gretsch Combo knows he's got a championship to fight for. He's not only got the lead in the club championship, he is also at the top of the pile in the Victorian State Race Series points as well. So Damien hasn't done all the rounds, so he knows that points on the board is the order of the day, and not to do anything too silly. And you're right, it's a bit of a shame for Jared Tonks as well, because there he is actually just off to the left-hand side on the exit of turn 10. And that car looking a little bit sort of sorry for itself. They've had a monumental effort to get here as well. As McLennan in the Pro Cut Monaros tries to stick his nose up the inside of Matt Logan, who's a little bit slow here. And horsepower in a straight line will be in favour of McLennan here. Down to turn 1, that should be a comfortable pass. Neil Crow, he's actually taken a little bit of a good step forward here, and not only is Matt Logan been passed by McLennan, he's going to be passed by Jin Wook Song as well, so maybe a little bit of a gremlin there for Matt Logan.
He's dropped right back as well, so we've got McLennan and the Black Commodore there. They're moving their way through, trying to catch Neil Crow, who's continued his good start to the race as well.
Change for the lead. Damien Milano goes through in the number 88 machine. A little bit of a wiggle there in the braking zone, heading down into turn number 6. Getting a bit of word through, it looks like it might be a broken front strut potentially for Matt Logan in the VE Commodore. That might be why he's struggling. Returning to my earlier point just about Jared Tonks, there's a monumental effort for them just to get the car to the track this weekend. Earlier in the year, he hurt the engine very, very badly. It was crank damage that actually had, I think it was a hairline fracture in the crank at the Bathurst 12-hour sport race, which is the combined sedans event. And it just went through the roof, the temperatures went through the roof, and they had to go and get some new parts from overseas. They still haven't arrived, so he's actually swapped out to a previous motor. Now, there's a few drivers look like they've just been handed some 5-second penalties for jump starts. You can see there Grant Ogle, who's currently running position 8. He's got a 5-second penalty, the number 30. And car number 1, which is Jared Tonks, which normally it's 91, but he's got 1 on the side of the car there. He's got a 5-second penalty, but, well, he's not going to be able to serve it. He's going nowhere.
Unfortunately not, but fortunately for Grant Ogle, I don't think it will affect his position unless Matty Logan can sort of catch up, but as you said, he's already got a front strut drama, so it's unlikely. We've got Milano leading still from Timewell, and also I noticed that Gretsch Combo might be just holding a little bit in reserve for tomorrow. Yeah, he's sort of dropped back a little bit at a comfortable pace.
He definitely has. I think he's just fallen into that zone. He knows he's not under threat from Neil Crow behind. He's got plenty of margin, and he doesn't need to do anything silly in this race. He just needs to bring home a bunch of points. As you can see there as well, the fastest lap just popped up for Damien Milano. It was 1 minute 16.35, and I'm told there were about 3 or 4 drivers in open practice yesterday that had dropped into the 16s as the left-hand side tyres of Neil Crow's Commodore were well up in the air there. He's going to be rounded up here by Ian McLennan in the Pro Cut Monaro. Down the front chute. Crow's actually going to hold his own here, so not as straightforward as probably Ian would have thought that was going to be.
Nice bit of poke.
A little bit of poke, yeah, a bit of late poke there, and Crow a little bit of sideways action. He likes to refer to Phillip Island as sort of his home track because he loves driving there. We haven't seen him here for quite some time, and he's getting a little bit too trigger happy at the moment, dancing the rear end of that Build Look VH Commodore around.
He might need to preserve those tyres. There's still 7.5 minutes, or approximately 7.5 minutes of the race left, so he'll need to just hold on a little bit, but it looks like McLennan may get it done. But learning from our lesson from the...
emphasis on the word may get it done. He's going to have to go the long way here. Is he going to have to shortcut the track? He will. He'll have to cough that spot up. There's no way you can make an advantage by going outside the yellow painted lines there, and he knows it. And lets Neil Crow back through. But this is a scintillating battle here at the moment. So you could not get two different aged machinery in Holden colours going toe-to-toe here. Oh, right up over the inside curb at turn 11 there as well for Macca. And now the crisscross on the over and under, and he finally gets that move done. So it took a little bit more effort than he probably would have thought he was going to have to exert. He's finally managed to make it stick.
Those couple of laps just showcase the great racing that improved production provides with the different ages of cars, and you don't have to spend big bucks to actually compete on in a front-running car here.
No, that's right. It also really showed off the grip levels that they have aboard these Yokohama AO50 tyres as well, something that's been a long stay and a mainstay in the category for so many years. Yokohama do a fantastic job. The guys at Traction Tyre Centre here every weekend, and here to help out and just put tyres on cars when they need to be done. And now there's traffic coming into play here for the race leaders. Wayne Decker just unfortunately been caught at precisely the wrong moment by both Milano, and it's going to be a little bit easier for Danny Timewell to get through. That closes that margin down. It was sitting at around about 2 seconds, and that's really tightened things up with 6 minutes left on the clock.
And Greg Combo, he's sort of dropped back a bit, so it looks like he's just taking it easy with lap traffic as well.
He's got a much better run through the traffic, though. He's caught the lap traffic on the main straight, so he doesn't have to, be caught behind them at the critical parts of the circuit, like the corners at turn 10 down at Dandenong Road, where it becomes really, really troublesome if the apex gets taken away from you by a lapped car. Unfortunately, that's what does happen sometimes in improved production. There is quite a disparity in terms of the lap times from a number of these cars. You look at these guys out in front, they're doing 18s and 19s on a regular basis. You get all the way down to the XLs that are doing 36s and 37s, and even some of the cars like the one you just see in the front there on screen with Stewie Did, and they're dropping into sort of like the 1:30 bracket. So 15 seconds or 12 to 15 seconds is a lot, and especially after 7 or 8 laps, you get lapped fairly quickly.
It's like the days of old at Bathurst when you had various classes, and you had your Celica's v your Commodores v your I think your Corollas as well.
Back in the day, you're right. And these cars are derived from a production chassis. That's why it's called improved production. But they are far from your standard production cars that we see in other series around the country, where you've got a very limited amount of modifications you can do. There is a little bit more freedom. It's not the same sort of freedoms that you have in a sports sedan, but these are finely tuned cars. So some of the parts that you do need to have on hand can be a little bit more expensive, but you also can get a bit more longevity out of some of those parts as well. But if you do hurt them, you then got to play the waiting game like a number of drivers right now for parts to arrive from overseas, because some of them are just not stocked here in Australia.
But the positive for that is that various ideas for engineering can be put into play here, and there's 2 ways or more to do the same thing.
That's right. It's all about, I guess, interpretation of the rule book, isn't it? There's certain ways someone will read the rules one way and then someone will read them another way, but technically both interpretations are correct.
Absolutely.
In the eyes of how the words are written, you can argue a case. Timewell's keeping the pressure up here on Milano for the lead of this motor race. We have completed 7 laps so far, so this is lap number 8. All races this weekend are time certain, with the exception of the Saloon car final tomorrow afternoon, which is a 15-lap affair. Every other race is 18 minutes plus 1 lap when 18 minutes has elapsed. So there's only 3 minutes and 20 seconds or so on the clock here, so you can put your money down. There's probably going to be about another 3 to 4 laps to run here, as the WRX of Paul Cornell is being lapped down the front straight here by the race leaders.
And we mentioned the Tirana at the start of the race. Well, that's climbed up to 8th outright, which is a fantastic effort, considering he was starting from 20th. He
started very far down the order, Richard Valencic, and his lap times have not been too bad. He's been in the 25s and 26s most of the race. I don't think he's going to make much more progress forward. He's about 17 seconds behind Grant Ogle in the XR5, who's in 7th at the moment. So as you said, even with that penalty for the number 30 XR5, he's still going to be well clear of Richard Valencic in the Tirana.
And it looked like Valencic was about to get lapped as well.
Yeah,
so
he won't be far off right now, because Paul Cornell was about 5 seconds behind Valencic, and I dare say the race leaders have probably passed him on this lap, and there he's out of sight at the moment. So a number of these drivers down the order are still yet to pass the lap traffic. As first the under 2 litre cars in Peter McLean, who's gone very, very well this year. He's been doing PBs. There's the lap traffic. The legends just been passed. But first the under 2 litre cars in Peter McLean. He's had a stellar year. He's done PBs at most of the circuits he's been to before. He's come back around for a second time and continued to improve, and he's top of the under 2 litre standings at the moment.
And under 2 litre provides another opportunity for guys to enter this category and then progressively move to a over 2 litre car as well.
Potentially, I think we've seen very few drivers that have actually decided to do that, but it's definitely a great feeder category, and for a lot of drivers that cross-entered in some other series like the XLs, they can come in and they can get a little bit more value for money racing by paying the extra little bit of money and racing in 2 categories. XL's not here this weekend, unfortunately, so for those that didn't want to go and race elsewhere, improved production sort of becomes their only option. But the only thing they do have to switch on the car is the tyres. They have to switch off of the Dunlop tyres, which of course they got a new tender coming up for 3 years for the XLs. They have to take the Dunlops off and put the Yokohamas on.
Absolutely, but Timewell hasn't. He's unrelenting in his attack of Milano here. It's going to produce a very thrilling end to the race.
This is going to produce a very, very interesting end to the race. Will Danny go for another race win, or does he just sit there and try and pick up as many points as possible? For him, there is championship implications. Every point counts for Danny Timewell, so he would like to get past, if he possibly can, in the next lap or 2, but they have got lap traffic to contend with Appledore, the one in the meeting sandwich here, and Danny's going to throw it down the inside at turn 1, and he avoids the critical moment of hitting the inside curb. There was just enough margin there for him to sneak that VF Commodore down the inside and wrestle the lead away from Milano. Does Damien have anything to respond? If we're looking at it right now, I'd say Danny's opening the margin very, very slowly.
Congratulations to both drivers there, though. Damien Milano saw him late break and go down the inside. It was a great pass. It looks like they're side by side going down the back straight. Is Milano going to try around the outside? No. We generally don't see that work here, but it sets you up for a good run into turn 9.
It certainly does, and Danny holds sway for the moment. A little bit of front locking there from the number 11 down into Dandenong Road corner. I was talking to Milano earlier this morning. He saw me on the way to the driver's briefing. It was a little bit damp because there's a bit of rain hanging around. He's like, it's raining. What have I done entering this event? He was beside himself as to why he was actually going to run around in the wet. But running around the dry, he's actually very competitive at the moment. But he has just dropped away here. Danny's just skipped away in the last couple of minutes. Final lap has started right now, so 12 laps will be the duration for this opening hit out for round number 4 of the Victorian State Race Series, as Timewell locks up pretty badly, goes quite wide at turn 1. There's the incentive for Milano to get back through, but Danny just comes back on just at a critical moment to arrest the momentum of the 88 and hold a defensive line into the chicane. But he's now vulnerable and he's hurt that front tyre in the last few seconds. Is that going to give him an invoice to pay when we get to the braking zone at Dandenong Road?
It looked like Milano was just doing his best to get a great run onto that back straight. He just dropped the back wheel off the end there, and it's going to be it's going to be a challenge, but
that was a
challenge that failed.
That was a game of chicken heading up into turn number 6. Timewell had lost the momentum in a straight line. Milano had motored past, but under brakes, Danny was so much more committed to the braking zone as they're weaving their way through the traffic. Great situational awareness by both drivers and by the cars being lapped as well. But Timewell will hold on after a monumental struggle for the race lead, and he'll get another win here at Sandown. His happy memories are growing more and more fond here at this 61-year-old venue.
What a great race to kickstart the racing proceedings here at Sandown.
Great job by Danny Timewell, great job by Damien Milano, and Luke Gretschkumbo 3.7 seconds adrift of them both in 3rd place. So he picks up a good haul of points towards his title. A couple of replays here. McLean for the 2nd time down at turn number 1. A little bit of a pirouette and out of an out-braking moment there. Ian McLennan drove from 11th to 4th after all of that. He actually had a grid penalty carry over from a practice infringement yesterday, which I think a few drivers have disagreed with in the paddock, but we'll let that one be bygones. He's driven really well to get up to starting on the second row of the grid for their second race, which will be tomorrow morning. With Neil Crowhome in 5th. Jin Wook Song, he's just coming across the line there, the black Commodore in the back of shot to finish in 6th place. And the last car that's going to get home on the lead lap is going to be Grant Ogle. Even though he has that 5-second penalty over his head, he didn't get lapped at the end of that proceeding. So he will be safe. He'll finish in 7th in the XR5 ahead of Richard Valentich, Paul Cornell in the WRX, and Stewie Dearden, the first of the EA or EB Falcons home, in 10th place.
And he started at the back as well.
And he started at the very back of the grid. He was meant to start alongside Grant Ogle about 8th or 9th place on the grid and had to start essentially right from the back. Well, there you go. Race number 1 for improved production is over, thanks to Prestige Hino, Melbourne's most awarded Hino dealer. And there is confirmation of your finishing results. So another win for Danny Timewell, takes a little bit of a bite out of Luke Gretsch-Cumbo's Victorian State Race Series points lead, but he's going to need a few more of those wins to make any meaningful impact by the time we get to season's end. Milano second, Gretsch-Cumbo in the GC Electrical Centre to third from the Pro Cut Monaro of Ian McLennan, Neil Crow and Jin Wook Song, and Grant Ogle in the XR5, the only cars that made it home on the lead lap. Everybody else from there a lap down. Valentich, Cornell and co. And then Dearden inside the top 10. Despite those couple of spins, McLean in the other Commodore, the number 106 machine, actually only finished a lap down. So remarkable effort considering we've seen him off the road there twice, Heath.
Absolutely, and it's going to be interesting tomorrow with two of the fast guys, Matthew Logan and Jared Tonks, set to start from the back if they do start tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed,
absolutely indeed. We'll have a short break here in commentary, and coming up on the other side of this, it is the Vic V8. So more V8 horsepower gracing, the home of horsepower here, Sandown Motor Raceway.
Welcome back trackside here. Gee, I love improved production racing. I tell you what, it can be a snotty-nosed RX3 up against a Datsun 1600 in the late 90s, or it can be two equally snotty-nosed Commodores out in front in improved production. The racing is just massive. Always cool to see those cars out on track. Vic V8s, which I guess has spawned initially out of Commodore Cup disappearing from the landscape in Australian motorsport, but nonetheless they present a fantastic array of V8s. I would suggest most of them based out of Victoria or come to Victoria to go about their racing. And this is going to be a good call because we're joined by Greg Lynch, who I think won his first race at Phillip Island last year. Sports sedan race in the Victorian Championship and within the Vic V8s. But we'll hand over to Greg Lynch, and Heath McAlpine will stay on board here. And it's a big thanks to Mentone Premix Concrete presenting the races here. And I think I was right when at this round last year when the Mentone Premix Falcon went up and on top of the wall and had a very, very close call, and certainly was, we don't need to lose any of these XAs and that sort of thing, these coupes. We need to keep them alive and well. So great to see that Mentone Premix Concrete 1 year later have thrown their weight behind sponsoring the round for the Vic V8s. You are here trackside at the 888 Home Loans, round number 4 of the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships, and I'll hand it over to Heath and Greg.
Thanks, Darren. Who says Holden and Ford warfare is dead? Here, Vic V8s, we've got a great collection of Ford and Holden models competing this weekend. Some familiar-looking cars like the Mentone Premix XB. No, sorry, other XB. But we've got some fat-looking cars, I tell you what. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about this category. I mean, are you starting to run fairly regularly now with the Vic State Race Series?
Well, we're filling in with the Vic Race Series today. We run our own championship as the Vic V8s, which is usually a 5 or 6 round championship. Some of the rounds are held in conjunction with the Victorian Sports Sedans, and so put us on the Victorian State Race Series calendar. And some of them are where we run like this. When the sports sedans are hosting the round, the Vic V8s can come and do it on their own.
As the cars come out onto the grid, it's just like improved production. There's Holdens at the front, with Brian Finn leading the way in his Holden Commodore VS. Looks like a tribute 1997 livery there. Holden Young Lions sort of deal there. And then we've got the Holden Commodore VE of Matt Horn. And then we've got Mark Kakray. I don't know
Mark
if I did
Kakuri.
that. Yeah, Kakuri. There we go with his VH Commodore. And then we've got a Falcon XE that looks like a Group C car from the very late stages of that category.
Yeah, it's got the big flares and the big tyres. I think he runs 330mm wide rubber, and it really does look the part.
It does, absolutely. And then we've got Arthur Van Oorswy.
Arthur Van Oorsau.
Thank you very much. With his VS Commodore. And then we've got the XB Coupe of Gary Finemore. Now, that car, unfortunately, ended up on the wall last year, so hopefully he can get a good start.
Yes.
A better start this year. With Victor Argento in a AU Falcon and Gary Vella in his Commodore VS.
And then we have, off the next row of the grid, we have Greg Taylor in the Holden VY Commodore. Greg's actually leading the sportsman class of the Vic VH Championship at the moment. And Craig Eddy in his VH Commodore. And then Nathan Bell. Nathan had a bit of a shocker in qualifying this morning. He was chasing a really bad vibration, which he thinks he's tracked down to a flat spot on one of his front tyres. He was a couple of seconds a lap off where he really wanted to be. And David Radcliffe in the VT Commodore. David also, went out on the wrong tyres, went out in intermediates. It looked like we were going to need intermediates in qualifying, but David soon discovered that it was really the track for slicks in qualifying.
That's always the way, though, isn't it?
The weather gods.
Especially down here in Melbourne.
Absolutely.
So we have Brett Lehman there in the VE. I think he's in. The grid just sort of turned over there, but.
After Brett, we have Mick Pitcher. Mick's in another VT Commodore. Mick's coming back to motor racing. Started again, he's had a hiatus of 4 or 5 years, and he's come back in the VT Commodore, and he's still sort of finding his feet a little bit. And after that, we've got David Ramsey in another Ford Coupe. Another sort of historics car. Big Dave does lots of historics racing.
And that car looks like a John Goss. Is it a tribute car?
I think it's it's actually the real deal. Yeah, as is also Gary Finnemore's car is an ex-Eddie Albanica Touring Car Masters car.
Ah, yes. And looking at it now, it's on the screen now, that McLeod Ford. It looks like the car that raced at the 1973 Bathurst 1000, the first of the metric Bathurst races as well, and I think John Goss really pioneered he was the first to race one of those XA hardtop Falcons as well.
They're such a great looking car, really low to the road, wide stance. They're just a beautiful car to watch.
Absolutely. We're awaiting the start here at Sandown for the first race for the Vic V8s. The board has gone out. Will it be Horn from second?
Nah, my money's on Brian Finn. He usually gets very good starts.
Horn got a good jump, but Finn has... he's gone right away, and Finnemore has made a great jump to be third in the XB hardtop.
Yeah, slow away from the grid was Vic Argento in the AU Falcon, but yeah, Brian Finn's made it to the front.
And it looks like David Ratcliffe's come from nearly the back, the grid slot to be third.
Yeah, he started from P12. David always gets phenomenal starts. He's unbelievable when he starts. You know, he just often goes past me at the starts and makes me look like I'm standing still.
And I said it about improved production as well, but the presentation of these cars is really, really spot on. As Finn leads away down the back straight, it's a beautiful sight seeing V8s going down the back straight at Sandown.
It's the sight and the sound of them. They sound fantastic when you're out there. Really worth coming along to have a watch. Now, Alan Argento normally has a little bit of trouble with fairly cold tyres at this. Here comes the replay of the start now. Here we go. We'll watch David Radcliffe, who should be starting from the 6th row of the grid. There he goes, pulling out to the outside.
He absolutely had a stormer of a start down the outside, no dramas. Got a bit close to the wall there, but yeah, he slotted in straight behind that XB coupe.
And then he heads straight for the inside, where he's made P4 his own. Oh, he's even got the P3.
Yeah, you got the XB going into turn 1. So Ratcliffe, I think, still third, but that XE, I'll tell you what, Dick Johnson ate your heart out with that XE Falcon. And I'll tell you what, the wide tyres, the wide stance, it looks magnificent.
Well, Alan's been able to get around Mark Kukuri, which is sometimes a bit of a challenge to get around Mark Kukuri. And it looks like they're all waiting to pass Arthur now.
As we got, Finn's got a good lead over Horn, as Ratcliffe hasn't been able to continue his charge through the field. It might just stop into third. But
there we go. Alan's gone around the long way, around Arthur, coming into turn 6, and managed to just pull it up in time.
I think he got a bit of the grass coming into the old Rothman's Rise there, and just shook up the rear a little bit. Just was able to save it.
He's been having a lot of trouble with the car. It sits pretty high at the rear, and so he's been using a lot of front brake pads, but can't wind much more rear on because the car's getting too light on the rear and starts locking the rears.
Yeah, and we don't want that, do we? It might be a bit of a handful to drive.
Absolutely.
Oh no, that's the 1973
David Ramsey's
Bathurst car there. Unfortunately, that hasn't seen lap 3 yet.
Yeah, it's a shame for Dave. He's obviously pulled it off for safety.
And we've got Gary Finnemore and Argento going for Hammer and Tom here for 4th place.
An interesting horsepower battle here coming up the back straight. Alan Argento's got plenty of horsepower, but Gary's driving very, very well. He's really improved as a driver in the last 18 months.
I remember when Abel Nitsa had that car, and it was one of the fastest in a straight line in TCM.
There we go. Looks like Alan managed to take the inside line and now leads down into Dandenong Road.
As we've got Argento sort of, do you reckon he's a match for David Ratcliffe in his VT Commodore?
I think, yeah, they're pretty evenly matched. I think because his tyres should starting to be come on now, he usually finds that about lap 3 or 4 is when his tyres start to come on, and I reckon he'll be all over the back of David Radcliffe fairly soon.
And it's great to see so many different models, just like improved production, the variety of models, as we see a change for 3rd place as well with, or not quite, no. I've pulled that too early, but Argento's right onto him.
There are times when David Radcliffe has the widest Commodore in the whole Southern Hemisphere. He can be really challenging to pass at times. It's really good when you get into a battle with David.
And Finnemore has dropped a couple of positions to the Commodores, but it's great to see so much variety in this class, you know, in terms of Commodores and Falcons, and, you know, from the 70s ranging all the way up to nearly current day as well.
And they're such a great great bunch of blokes. They all get on very well together, and it's a really good car club to be involved with.
Is it limited to Fords and Holdens to compete, or is it anything that is V8?
That's an interesting question. At the moment, it's only comprised of Ford and Holden V8s, but I'm sure it would probably be open to other V8s if they wanted to do it too, as long as it's a production-based car.
Yep. Yeah, and sort of what do you need to have to compete in this category? Obviously a V8 and a car to start off with.
Yes, has to be a V8 with the engine mounted in the normal position in front of the firewall. No mid-mount engines allowed like in sports sedans. There's two classes of Vic V8s. One of them is the championship class, and the other one is sportsman class. You're allowed more modifications in sportsman class than you are in championship class. You're allowed to have a lower spoiler, for example, like what Greg Taylor has on his VZ Commodore, and you're allowed to have a bigger rear wing. You're also allowed to have a sequential gearbox in sportsman class, whereas it has to be a traditional H-pattern gearbox in the championship class.
And there's one for the Ford lovers. That's I'm pretty sure that's a Tickford TS, a Tickford model that I think raced back in the day as well in GT Performance as well. I remember John Falk racing one back in the day with quite a lot of distinction as well.
Well, this car is actually a former Rick Newman car from Improved Production. Rick campaigned this car for quite a few years in Improved Production, and has now Vic Argento bought it a couple of years ago. Vic's still sort of coming to grips with the car a little bit. He had some issues this morning. He blew a tyre in qualifying, actually.
Yeah, I don't think you really want to blow a tyre around here. Particularly at around the back there as well.
That's where it happened. It was a front right at turn 6.
Oh no, at least it looks like he managed to keep it off the wall, so he did a really good job there to recover.
So you can see the Commodore of Greg Taylor, car number 11, is the leading car in championship
The sportsman
class, thank you. And Vic V8. Oh no, we've got Alan Argento in the wall just coming out of turn 4. Looks like he's been able to get the car restarted. Might have started a small grass fire. I wonder if this might bring out a safety car.
Well, hopefully you can pluck it in reverse and get it out. Too late, safety car has been called. That's unfortunate because that car is one of the best presented in the field. But hopefully you can get it out. Maybe bit of overrun with the fuel, but there's 6 minutes to go, so hopefully they can get it out and we can maybe have a one lap flyer to go.
Yeah, it would be nice to compress the field a little bit and give everybody a chance at being able to perhaps sneak a position or so. Sometimes the safety cars can be kind to you, and sometimes the safety cars can really hurt.
Well, I think Horn will not be arguing about that safety car because Finn was sort of, he was just building and then sitting comfortably with a nice margin. But you were discussing earlier about where some of these cars have come from. So there's improved production, and there's some production cars as well, Commodore Cup too. So it seems like it's not having to build a car is not you're allowed to you're allowed to enter cars from different categories into this class.
Correct. It really provides a home for cars that, once the demise of the Commodore Cup, it provides a home for cars like that, and an opportunity for people to go out and pick up a car at a reasonable price and enter the world of motorsport. It doesn't always have to be an expensive car to get into running around, and the car club like the Vic V8s are very welcoming of anybody who wants to, try their way into motorsport.
Fantastic, that's cool. And what other rounds do you race at throughout the year?
So we do the Victorian State Race Series round in February.
Yep.
And then we did a round at Winton with the VMRS series at Winton, which was held just before Anzac Day. And then we did the another VMRS round at Winton just a month ago in July. We've got this round, and then after that we've got a round at Calder at the end of the year.
Perfect. These cars around Calder will be spectacular.
Well, it's going to be a twilight event at Calder, so
Fantastic.
That could be interesting. My memories of racing at Calder in a twilight event were many years ago, and it was a wet round, and I created some difficulties in seeing very well, because at that stage Calder only had lighting on the front straight, and it meant that a lot of the stuff on the back section of the track, we were almost doing by braille.
Oh, that sounds really, really fun.
It was fun
makes
and
me want to get
challenging.
behind the wheel of a race car, for sure. As the cars come around for the around the final corner, it's going to be a checkered flag, unfortunately. But we've got Brian Finn, who's going to take pole to win from pole from.
Matty Horn second.
Matt Horn, and disregard the McLeod Ford.
David Ratcliffe brings it home in third position, followed by Arthur Arsaw in the fourth spot, and then Mark Kukuri in the V8 Commodore. He makes it to fifth. And Gary Finnemore, a really good drive from Gary. Gary's finished in sixth place. He's been improving significantly as a driver. Craig Eddy made up a number of spots from qualifying. He went out on wets in qualifying and had a bit of a drama, just wrong tyre choice. And by the time he pitted and came out with a red flag, it interrupted his qualifying session. So he's done very well to finish up in seventh position, followed by Gary Vella, a really good drive from Gary. He's putting some solid performances together. Vic Argento, after a very slow start, managed to recover to finish in P9. And Greg Taylor in sportsman class has picked up some more points to do very well as well. And then we had Mick Pitcher in the VT Commodore, followed by Brett Lehman, and it's only Brett's real first year of racing, and Brett's managed to finish up in 12th.
Fantastic, and obviously Argento failed to finish with Ramsey, Bell, Owen and Bonner. Owen and Bonner, of course, did not start.
Yeah, Steve's had a lot of trouble. He had a lot of trouble at Winton with engine miss, and those dramas have plagued him. They threw a fuel pump at it, they've thrown a new distributor at it, a new ignition module at it, and they just really struggle with that car.
Well, that's it for the Vic V8's opening race. Thank you very much for joining us, and you'll be joining us again tomorrow.
I hope so. All right.
Fantastic. And next on the card is the Saloon cars.
All right. Thank you again.
So recovery still continuing on the track now. Shame to see the Argento Falcon make contact with the wall like that. Park recovery front and centre. Again, the volunteer officials spring into action. Victorian Fire and Rescue, thank goodness they didn't have to be used, and we've got no medical cars there. But certainly all the facilities are here. Hey, we have got just a few moments to go before race 2 of the weekend, race 3 actually, of the heat 2 of the Saloon cars, the Right Way Saloon cars. Let's go and catch up with Dan McCarthy down in the pits.
Here with Grant Johnson, who's competing in the National Saloon Cars this weekend here at Sandown. A former champion. Got stiff competition though this weekend, haven't you?
Yeah, there's quite a few fast cars around, so we'll hope for some rain, and we'll see how we go.
For you, obviously, you've competed at national level for so many years. When was the last time though you raced here at Sandown?
I was trying to work out, it's either 2011 or 2012, so it's a fair while ago, and I've never driven a saloon car around here either. So, we haven't really been doing much testing or racing this year either. So the last time I raced was November last year. So, car's got a few cobwebs on it. The driver's got a few more. So we'll see how we go.
How are you finding the competition? As we say, it is really good. All the Victorian competitors, and of course South Australia as well with Brad Vaughan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great, isn't it? And there's a couple of Fords up there too. So everyone always complains about the whole Holden and Ford and the Commodore's too fast. So it's really good to have a couple of Falcons up there. And I've never raced against Vaughnie at all. So we'll see how we go. He's starting from the pole. We got 4 races, haven't we?
Indeed, absolutely. You spoke about the weather just before. That could play a big factor over the weekend.
Yeah, that's right. So generally our car's not overly fast in a straight line compared to some of them, but it's pretty good in the wet. So it's always a mixed bag, isn't it, when the weather comes in? So we'll just deal with it if and when it comes in.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
And you.
Cheers.
Great to hear from Grant Johnson over from the West, running in the Right Way Industrial Saloon Car Nationals Heat 2, 18 minutes plus 1 lap time, certain affair as it is right across the landscape here in the 888 Home Loans Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships, and has been a fantastic season of racing for the Victorian saloon cars. And we're really enjoying watching what they go about. Certainly part of this round, the Complete Race Driver, Think Race Win. The Complete Race Driver is a unique online race driving school for rookies and amateurs, professionals and champions, and everything in between. When you join, you'll get access to over 6 hours of video with diagrams, onboards, reading material with over 60 lessons to help you improve your driving. The course contains information on the fundamentals of what it takes to drive a race car, as well as advanced techniques and tips and tricks. This course has been designed by Australian engineer who has worked with drivers of such reputation as Jamie Whincup, Marcus Ambrose, Mark Winterbottom, Will Power, and more in his 30-year career in motorsport. Learn more on how to improve your driving today at www.thecompleteracedriver.com. Right Way Saloon cars making their way out onto track now. I'm Darren Smith, and the guy that has ridden the wave of success and growing fields throughout this 2023 season is Dan McCarthy. Dan, welcome to Sandown and the Saloon Car Nationals.
Great to be here. We've been looking forward to this, haven't we, for quite some time?
We have, yeah. Since it was announced it was going to be here, we've been getting ourselves ready. And I'm not going to make a liar of myself here. You have done all the hard work here, mate, and this is going to be a ripping affair over the next day or so, isn't it?
Certainly is. We had heat number 1 early this morning, and it was a cracking race. So many different race leaders, and particularly a brilliant battle for 6th. But we'll talk you through the grid. Travis Lindorf came from the second row in the last one to take the victory, ahead of Scott Dornan, who made a blinding start, 7th on the grid, and came out of turn number 1 in 2nd position and stayed there. Harvey will come out of 3rd, ahead of Grant Johnson, who we were just talking to before. Brad Vaughan got a post-race penalty, 5 seconds for an infringement at the start, too far ahead of his grid box. He'll start alongside Daniel Johnson. Jacob Prespino made up heaps of positions in the earlier race to finish in 7th, alongside Adam Lowndes, who himself had a lot of recovering to do, both of them having issues in qualifying. They will start ahead of Karen Pridmore and Kevin Stoopman, the Victorian Championship leader, coming out of position number 10. Not quite been the weekend he's been after so far, but many more races to recover. He'll start ahead of one of the visitors, Robert Markin, and Chris Neefsey in 12th position. 2 visitors there. Luca Callahan will come out of 13 alongside Rick Gill. Gary Hills had a few issues yesterday, but a good performance earlier on in position number 15 alongside David Lyons. Martin will come out of the following position alongside McLeod. So plenty of battles further down the field, and the list just keeps coming through. Reginald Ralph was the best of the older spec machines in that last race. He'll come from just outside the top 15. And the names continue to come through. Martin, and then, the screen is just rotating in front of me.
interesting thing, and there's always been the powerhouse out of the West with saloon cars, and they've not let us down so far, have they? The Western Australians have really jumped into action and showing us the way again. Interesting, Rick Gill, some of these names have been around quite some time. Grant Johnson, we just heard from. They really do know how to go saloon car racing.
Not just the older West Australians, but Harvey as well, who led most of the race earlier on, but lost time, lost positions late in the race, and finished down in position number 3. He's certainly got the pace, the youngster.
What a great life, hey? He's been racing Toyota 86s, Toyota 86 Scholarship Series last weekend at Queensland Raceway, and now this weekend we've got him racing here, coming off the second row of the grid. We'll look forward to seeing how Mason Harvey jumps from the line. And the cars are lining up in the Rightway Industrial Saloon Car Nationals heat number 2. Just a little bit of a nuance, Dan, about this while the cars are still taking up their spots. The first 3 races of the weekend counting as part of the Victorian series, and then of course we go into the finals of one race, as it is with the Nationals. We've seen it with improved production over many years, Formula V, etc. One race determines the national champion.
Yeah, essentially these 3 heats are all about getting that grid position for the winner-takes-all final. You might finish 8th in the first 3 heats, but if you win the final, you win the title of the National Saloon Car Champion of 2023. Grant Johnson has won the last few. Can they stop the West Australian, the purple machine that comes from row number 2 alongside Harvey? It's 2 Holdens on the front row, and it's the blue machine of Lindorf with the better initial launch, but Dornan in the secondary phase of the start pulls alongside as they head down towards turn number 1. We could see the rest of the field continue to stream through, and my crikey, it is a big field, over 30 cars, saloon cars here this weekend as they head into turn number 1.
We're going to have a quick look right back down through the field as this race goes on. Brett Tate right from the back of the field there in that very familiar black and grey kind of Craig Lowndes replica type of livery on board that car. It doesn't say Ford, it says Tate, and it's Tate lawyers that are on the side of that car. Dornan's got a ripping start there in the number 23 as we cast our eyes down to turn number 4, and they start to make their way out side by side through turns 2, 3 and 4, and they just start to get a little bit of an air gap between them. It looks like Dornan leading the way up to the top of the hill for the first time round.
It is Dornan, as you say, from Lindorf. Then Harvey's dropped back several positions. He now sits in 6th position, and there's a move as they're down Dandenong Road, a bit of a lock-up. It's all happening down here at Dandy Road as they exit the turn. It's a bit of a lead for Dornan, who's, again, for the second race in a row, made an absolute blinder. And he's slightly edged ahead of Lindorf, a former Victorian State Series winner in saloon cars. Lindorf, certainly lots of experience as they head onto the pit straight. Line astern, Dornan from Lindorf, Johnson, Vaughan. Then we have Prestipino, good start from him, and Harvey in 6th. Daniel Johnson's lost the 1 position. He's in 7th, head of Lowndes, Gill and Pridmore rounding out the top 10.
Great to see the number 99 of Prestipino jumping up there, 2 spots up on the opening part of this lap. Mason Harvey has dropped back from 3rd to 6th. Daniel Johnson has jumped up to 7th place. Gill has had a good start as well. He's inside the 10, was in the mid-teens there, so jumped up very, very nicely indeed on the opening stanza of this race.
Kevin Stoopman, our series leader in the Victorian Championship, has come into the lane on lap number 1. I saw them doing quite a bit of work under that machine, that Ford Falcon, just prior to the start of this race, and it looks like they've not been able to fix whatever they were doing, and that car is in the lane at the end of lap number 1, so not the start that he was after. As we can see the cars come over the crest of the hill and down into Dandy Road.
So some big movers we're just touching on there through this field. And Carter's coming through the lane and heading back out again. That's the Nash Harris car, and heading back out onto the track. So that's a shame
5-second penalty on the screen, as we can see again for Brad Vaughan. That's 2 races in a row. Vaughan with a 5-second penalty next to his name. Was he in the grid box this time, or was it a jump start? Not entirely sure, but it's not been a good day after taking pole for the South Australian yesterday.
Just some great battles at the front of the pack, as in saloon cars it always is. And they just head underneath the bridge, up the little short straight to the S's and back onto the straight. So the 21, we've just been told, received a drive-through there. So that was...
that's the other Harris.
Other Harris, yes.
Blake Harris. So it's not been a good day for the Harrises either. And yes, there we have seen proof of the 5-second penalty start infringement for Vaughan. So it's all happening out there on the racetrack as we speak. Dornan still leads the motor race, but it's mighty close now with both Lindorf and the 5-second penalty. Vaughan up behind him, directly behind him.
They fan out going into turn 1 and start to push their way outside. So cars making their way around to complete lap number 3 in the right way. Industrial Saloon Car Nationals. If it seems as though the pictures aren't matching the words out there on the live stream at the moment, is that we're not got live pictures into the commentary booth at the moment. So we're just doing the very best we can to represent the right way. Industrial Saloon Car Nationals from where we can see. And the cars just starting to spread out a little bit on track at the moment, and you get the feeling that we're starting to settle down into a race, and it looks as though there's a couple of cars coming down.
Blake Harris.
Yeah, there goes Blake Harris down the lane. Nash Harris has not exited the pits, may have gone to the back of the paddock, because we saw the car come down the lane. That's the yellow, I guess, Big Kev tribute livery.
See at the back there's Vaughan all over the tail of Lindorf as they head down into Dandenong Road corner. And now as well, right up behind them are another couple of vehicles. That is, of course, the reigning champion Johnson and Harvey as well. So you can see them come down into the final sequence corners. Look at Vaughan having a look. He's first of the Falcon runners, and he's right on the tail of the Commodores. So Dornan, Lindorf, Vaughan, Johnson and Harvey all line astern, all within 1.5 seconds down towards turn number 1. And then behind that, Prestopino in the black and green machine just ahead of Daniel Johnson and Adam Lowndes. So there's 2 groups, sort of as it was in race number 1 earlier on today, which is really good to see some fighting battles, and this is what we've come to expect in saloon car racing, not only in Australia but around the nation as well. Really good series over in Western Australia, really good series in South Australia, and it's good to see that, you know, South Australians come over here, a few Victorians go over to South Australia. And it's good to see that the Nationals have brought over the West Australians and the South Aussies for what is a massive field of saloon cars. We look at the Chembry machine a little bit further down the order, making his way through the final couple of corners.
Joel Heinrich in the field there as well, not really taking too much part in the front of the battles here at the moment, but this is absolutely where it's at. We saw Brad Vaughan head over here after he'd done some Super 2 or Super 3, I think it was, racing earlier on this year and even last year in the number 55 Sedan Hotel entry. And I guess the car owner of that car is a noted admission to this weekend's competition, Dan.
Yeah, Sean Jamieson, who won all 3 races here earlier on in the year, but a few car troubles meant that he couldn't be out there, unfortunately. Was a provisional entrant, but in the end not able to do so. As we see Lowndes further back up the inside of Prestopino. Prestopino's lost a couple of positions on the last lap, because we can see that yellow Falcon. Daniel Johnson has also got past him last time through. There is Gill.
Wow, he's a big mover, Rick Gill, right up inside the 10 now with Lowndes, Prestopino and Johnson. I guess this is the group that we're most commonly used to seeing running inside the top 5 within the Victorian series. Throw in a bit of a Travis Lindorff in the mix in there every now and again, but pretty much everyone else is in there. Have a look at this front group. They are absolutely going for it. Side by side, the 23 Dornan up beside Lindorff gets it done. The two Commodores lead the field across the top. Brad Vaughan in the 55 Falcon. And down on the inside, the 54, a big move there by Mason Harvey, makes it stick. Boy, oh boy, sent that manoeuvre. And have a look at this, Grant Johnson in the purple car is going to get a spot through here as well. Maybe even 2 under brakes as we go into the right-hander at the S's.
The Falcons compromised each other there on the exit of the corner, and Johnson says, thank you very much, I'll take one, and nearly got through on Harvey as well. Harvey all locked up, was trying not to run into the back of Lindorff, and look at them, line astern. Lindorff's having a look at Dornan for the lead, and then behind that, Harvey, Johnson and Vaughan line astern. Dornan closing the door on Lindorff, who misses the apex a little bit there, does the 51, runs wide over the ripple strip.
Might have been a big lock-up into Dandenong Road, but Mason Harvey on that last lap set the fastest lap of the race. He's gone through nicely. The number 2 is in pit lane, Matthew Martin in the Commodore. Purple car has come into the lane now, so looking at that, and then the 48 of Granger comes into the lane as well. So a fair bit of action coming into the lane. Mark Granger out of New South Wales has found himself in the lane, as has Kevin Stoopman.
And the Lines car, number 24, Lines, that didn't sound particularly good going past the commentary box window that time through either. So a few mechanical issues at this point, and we could have some lap traffic issues as well, as the 5 have all closed up now. Line astern. Lowndes having a bit of a look at Johnson down into Dandy Road, but can't get through. So those 3 are still line astern, but up the pointy end, they've all closed. It was briefly 2 groups. The front pair had broken away, but Harvey has brought Johnson and Vaughan along with him to make it 5 at the top of the tree once more. Remember, Vaughan's got that 5-second penalty once again hanging over his head. At the moment, that'll drop him down to just behind these 3 here on the screen. So it could cost him quite a few points. Dornan, once again, running a slightly defensive line. And Lindorff is right on his back bumper. Couldn't be any closer if he tried. Is he going to look for the inside at turns 2 and 3? No, settles back in behind. And around the 90-degree left-hander. I heard this referred to as sort of street circuit section, and it almost is, with the concrete walls and the barriers so close around 2, 3, 4, and then the run down the back straight. It does have a sort of street circuit characteristic to it with 90-degree corners. But on a permanent circuit, you don't see too many 90-degree corners, but Sandown providing them in that first sector. As we see them go over the crest of the hill and down into Dandenong Road. I don't think Lindorff's close enough this time through.
Interestingly enough, those 90-degree corners are basically the boundaries of the property where they run the racetrack right up. You put a 90-degree corner in there and you use the property to its absolute maximum. This is typical. This is digging deep into the annals of the history of saloon cars. Back in the dial, before you dig National Series era, we used to see races like this all the time. In fact, I hark onto history. We don't even have to look that much further back. The last round at Phillip Island, the last round at Winton, these saloon car races are massive. Starting to come up onto some of the tail end of the field there as well. They're just at the other end of the straight. And you'd have to suggest, with still a decent amount of time, 6 minutes left in this race, they're going to catch them, that's for sure. These guys are racing really well. I'm very impressed with Scott Dornan in the Action 23, how he's able to have gotten to the lead and just held on to it, managed the race from his position, because at the moment, Travis Lindorff, Mason Harvey, Grant Johnson and Brad Vaughan have got no answer. There goes Daniel Johnson, who has worked tirelessly in the background to get this event up and running and to make sure everything happens just exactly as it should. Behind Johnson is Lowndes, and then it's Prestipino. We go back to 9th place with Rick Gill, and then it's Pridmore. Prestipino's collected the wall at the exit of 4 that time around as well, so just having that information fed back to us obviously has continued on.
See him having a big moment over the crest of the hill and down into Dandy Road. But yes, a big moment there for Daniel Johnson. Kick it sideways, 2 wheels through the grass, and Lowndes, his usual title protagonist, all over his tail, trying to pick up the pieces. Manages to hold on to the position for now, but that was a big moment and a big big save, and I think it was side by side a little bit further forwards as well, and it is between our race leaders Lindorf and, oh, here we go, move for position, Lowndes jolting to the inside of Johnson down towards turn number 1. Look at this as they weave their way through the lap traffic. It's like a World Endurance Championship race with the way they're navigating the lap traffic, and Lowndes up the inside. Johnson running around the outside of the Ripple Strip as they come on the Tate Lawyers machine. Tate, brilliant heads-up driving, moves out of the way. Really good stuff there. And now Knight as well in the number 28 Falcon. He also moves out the way for this fight for 6th position on the road.
Geez, I reckon Johnson's run onto the straight was compromised, and he had to hold on tight. I wouldn't be surprised if Lowndes has flowed the car better through turn 4, which will always give you the better terminal velocity at the top of the straight here. Pulls to the outside, and there it is. That was the compromised run that Daniel found himself in. They're going to go side by side. There's a lot of trust between these races to do that. Out over the Ripple Strips goes the 19, under brakes, and there it is. Daniel Johnson holds on because he's managed to keep the pace of the car, albeit gets the rear wheel out over the dirt there and gets the job done there. Some great racing by these two Victorian protagonists.
Absolutely, at the head of the field though, it's 3 different states in the top 3. We got South Aussie from a Victorian and a West Australian, and we can see the number 7 machine enter the
Jackson
lane.
Griffith, yeah, the Victorian. Stopped on the road into the pit lane there.
Dornan defensive once again down into turn number 1, and Harvey up the inside of Johnson. That's a change for 3rd. Meanwhile, the other Johnson, not related, trying to get back on Lowndes, who has made his way by down in towards turn number 1. So that's another change of position. This is just brilliant saloon cars racing. We said it's the biggest field here in a decade, and putting on a real show in heat number 2 of the saloon cars. Look at them, still line astern. Dornan from Lindorf, the margin, you can separate them hardly even with a cigarette paper.
I tell you what, if you're like a lot of Australians in the general public of motor racing and you like your Holden and Ford battles, round 4 of the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships is all about it. Vic V8s with Falcons and Commodores and Tiranas racing each other, saloon cars with Falcons and Commodores racing each other. If that's your liking, come out to the track, come and see it. We'll be here all day tomorrow with this sort of racing going on. Thanks for joining us at the track if you are here today. Thanks for joining us if you're joining us on the Victorian State Circuit Racing telecast or broadcast via Blendline TV. But this action is absolutely amazing. You can't write the script on this. Last lap board out.
Certainly is, and we're in for a show. Harvey is now having a little bit of a look on the back of Lindorf, so it's still all to play for. He's having a look once again, Lindorf, into turn number 1 on Dornan, but Dornan just seems to have the legs. Oh, Lindorf has run wide over the Ripple Strip at turn number 1. An unforced error allows Harvey to take 2nd position, just filed in, made the position just about, squeezed his Falcon in there, and he has taken 2nd position. He's got the fastest lap of the race and only a couple of tenths off the lap record. That was earlier on when he made that brilliant move on Vaughan down into Dandenong Road. So he's clearly got the pace. We showed that earlier on, as I said, led most of heat number 1, but made a mistake late on to fall down to 3rd. And he's got the pace again in this one. All race long, Dornan's had Lindorf behind him. Not this time. He's got Harvey behind him, and Harvey throws it over the hill and down into Dandy Road for the final time. Dornan had to go defensive. That'll affect his run out of the corner. Harvey's going to look to the inside, but of course, double wave yellows. The number 7 machine of Griffith is still stopped in the pit, so no overtaking into this sequence of corners. It's all about the exit and the run after this pit lane to the line. I don't think he's going to do it. Dornan will hold on. The South Aussie takes 1. Race number 2 goes to Dornan, ahead of Harvey and Lindorf, half a second between the 3 of them. And then the reigning champion Johnson in 4th, ahead of Vaughan. But we'll see where Vaughan finishes with that 5-second penalty over his head.
South Australia, Western Australia, Victorian, true Nationals form. Bring it in from anywhere and the best will shine on through. I'm going to say that was a magnificently managed race by Scott Dornan.
Prestopino is still out there limping it to the line. Crikey, they were up till 2:30 this morning trying to fix this car overnight. A few issues in qualifying. So recovered really nicely in race 1, not the race 2 he was after, but nevertheless going to come home and score some good points and get some good points on the board. There it is, the 99 machine across the line in the end in 13th. Still further up than where he qualified. With
this is horrible to see Prestipino do this. This car has run faultlessly. It's been prepared within a millimetre of its life, and I would suggest that this is not a great weekend, and everyone has these weekends from time to time. You just hope it's not the biggest stage for your category like the Nationals is for the Right Way Industrial Saloon Car Nationals here this weekend.
Yeah, rear control arm failure for him in qualifying. Just exhaust as well. The exhaust broke. Got that repaired till 2:30 this morning. Then they had to do a header this morning. It's just been a real difficult weekend for them so far. But nevertheless, as we say, points. P number 13 in that one for Jacob Prestipino. Here are the final results then from that one. As you say, Scott Dornan, a magnificent victory by 0.2 of a second, holding off the pressure from both Harvey and Lindorf in the closing stages. Grant Johnson finishing in 4th ahead of Brad Vaughan, who I believe with the 5-second penalty will drop behind both Lowndes and Johnson. So he will finish in 7th position. Then Rick Gill, Chris Nifsey and Luke O'Callaghan running at the top 10. Ahead of Robert Markin, Brock Ralph, Jacob Prestipino limping across the line in 13th, ahead of Andrew McLeod, Vincenzo Ciela in 15th. Blake Harris, despite serving a drive-through, finished in 16th, ahead of Karen Pridmore, Gary Hills, Reginald Ralph, and Jackson Leach rounding out the top 20, and the names just continue to file through. Andrew Martin, 21st, Jager Knight, Brett Tate, Justin Schembri rounding out the finishers. Lyons, Griffith, Martin, Granger and Stoopman all failed to greet the checkered flag.
Fantastic call there, Dan McCarthy. I'm old enough to have worked with Barry Oliver, and you've just done your best Barry Oliver breathe through your ears race I've ever seen outside of Barry Oliver. So fantastic call for heat number 2 for the Right Way Industrial Saloon Car Nationals. A very passionate commentator working with the saloon cars here this weekend. Plenty more racing to go. Still 2 more races for the saloon cars tomorrow. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning is one of their races, and then at 1:20 tomorrow. So we'll say goodbye. There's a couple of cars that have got some work to do to get themselves ready for tomorrow's racing. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back here at the 888 Home Loans Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships, round number 4. We're back with Formula Fords.
And welcome back to round 4 of the Victorian State Racing Series here at the historic Sandown International Raceway. Very privileged to be here this week and very happy to be at Sandown International Motor Raceway because it is such a historic venue and so much history, Australian motorsport history here at the Sandown International Raceway. So Formula Ford coming your way very shortly. This is actually round 5 of the Australian Formula Ford Series. This is going to be race 1, 18 minutes in duration plus 1 lap to commence round 5 of the Australian Formula Ford Series. My name is Callum Brannigan and I'm joined alongside by Paul Ziddy. I can't remember the last time we were sitting alongside one another calling Formula Ford racing, but it's great to be to your left once again for what is going to be an outstanding race coming our way. 33 Formula Fords around Sandown. It's going to be spectacular.
Absolutely, can't wait to see it. And it has been a little while. You've been preoccupied with other activities. Great to have you back on board. And yeah, historically, Very significant for Formula Ford, of course, going all the way back to 1969, the first ever Formula Ford race in Australia took place right here at Sandown International Motor Raceway. So wonderful for Formula Ford to be back here as always, as we see the starting grid come up. Interesting qualifying session, punctuated by red flags and ultimately finishing short. So well done to Harrison Sellers and to Jack Bussey, who made the most of banking a lap. Fair to say that the times throughout qualifying were nowhere near where anyone would have expected them to have ended up had that gone flag to flag. But Harrison and Jack both managed to get out, get good laps bagged early, and that paid dividends for them, filling out the front row.
Matthew Hillier starting in position 3. He'll be alongside Jake Santalucia, so a pair of McGales on the second row of the grid. We've got Zach Lobko, who this weekend is actually a privateer entry, starting at a P5. That is the number 7 car. Zach Lobko is one of the front runners in Australian Formula Ford Series. From Altatech Racing, Kobe Williams in the number 94 car, starting at a position 6. He'll be chased by Xavier Kokai. He is a familiar name in Victorian and Australian Formula Ford competition. He lines up alongside Connor Summers in the very brightly liveried orange car, starting on row number 4.
And then we go back to Fraser. He and Joe Fawcett are filling grid positions 9 and 10 in their spectrums. Bailey Collins out of 11 alongside Matthew Holmes out of 12. Another pair of spectrums there.
Lachlan Evanet starting at a P13 alongside Nico Mendez in P14. Cody Mains-Ruddy starting at a position 15 alongside Lachlan Strickland in the Right Way Insurance car. Tom Davies starting at a P17 alongside Imogen Ratburn starting out of P18. Daniel Frugas out of 19th and Liam Loiacano in position 20, Paul.
And then we go back to Harrison Blanchard out of 21 at an unfortunate incident in qualifying, but good to see that the team have got that car back together and him out for the race, lining up alongside Damon Woods. James Crozier, first race for him since 2015, I believe, back in the Fargus to Steel Spectrum, lining up alongside Lachlan Beneath in 24th.
Carly Fleming in the number 142 car, starting at a position 25 alongside Eddie Bezic. We're expecting him to charge through the field, starting from position 26. Richard Davison, the first of the Kent entry cars, the 1600 category car, the historic car that he's driving, in position 27 alongside Peter Fitzgerald, starting out of position 28.
And rounding out the grid, Mark Zellner and Frank Harris in their Kent engine, Formula Ford 1600s. As you alluded to, very much looking forward to what should be a fantastic race, given the mix-up of the cat that qualifying through amongst the pigeons. We have a lot of people starting further down the grid than they would normally do or would have liked to have done. So expect to see some great racing and moving right through this big field of Formula Fords as we progress through the 18 minutes of racing.
Look at that line of Formula Fords. This is going to be an outstanding race, Paul. Very much looking forward to this one. With special thanks to Victorian Freight Specialists as well, jumping behind, supporting grassroots motorsport, throwing their support behind the Australian Formula Ford Series here this weekend. Head to vfs.com.au to find out more information about Victorian Freight Specialists. We'll be talking about them a fair bit this weekend, and we sincerely thank them for their support for the Australian Formula Ford Series. We should also point out and say a big thank you to the series sponsors as well. With Yokohama, of course, they are the control tyre supplier with the Yokohama AO48. Dick Johnson Racing as well. We should point out that prize. That's been a bit of a newsy topic as well in recent weeks. Racer Industries, Castrol, Ferodo Racing and Norwell Motorplex. So, grassroots motorsport, young, up-and-coming racing stars, well supported with corporate partners this weekend as they're lining up on the grid. Yes, it does look a bit dark and gloomy out there at the moment, but it is a drying track, and we are looking forward to this 18-minute race getting underway very shortly. We should point out the fact that the time does tick down as soon as they leave the dummy grid, with the revs rising. 5 seconds board being shown to the field, Paul.
Let's see how can get away, and it's a great start from Sellers, an even start, but the second row looks like they got the better of it, so we'll see. I think the front two guys swamped into turn one. It looks like Matt Hillier maybe, or Jake Santa Lucia. The two cars off the second row, both making fantastic starts there.
Jack Bussey also with a great start. He's looming there in position 5 as well. Xavier Kokar getting a nice clean start, looming in the shadows there. That is the white and pink vehicle. And it looks like he's got Connor Summers for company as well. There's Zach Lopko having a look as well as they come through turn 4. But it is Matthew Hillier in the number 4 car. Fantastic start from the second row. He leads the field as they go up the back straight for the first time. It's a long uphill stretch. And here comes the conga line as they slipstream one another, trying to get that crucial toe up the back stretch. Jake Sandalucia coming under challenge from Harrison Sellers, who's defected to, or moved to Altatech Racing for this weekend, with immediate effect taking pole position, and a bit of a brake lock up there from Matt Hillier, but he keeps it all nice and under control as they come through Dandenong. But this has been a very strong start for the 33-strong field, Paul.
Always good to see a clean opening lap when there's a big field like this. It was so good to see the young drivers giving each other a bit of room and respect there. And as we say, Formula Ford, what typifies it is that slipstream battle, and Sandown Motor Raceway really brings that to the fore. You see that down the front straight here, even more so up the back. It's actually the fastest part of the circuit, nudging 220, 230 kilometres an hour as they crest what used to be known as the rise, and given that it is uphill, the slipstream there, when we look on the data, you can see almost a second, 6-7 tenths of a second, simply by positioning your car well and being in that toe. So it's definitely part of the strategy you need to be thinking about when you're out there racing.
Matt Hillier still in the number 2 car in the lead. Jake Santalucia has Harrison Sellers looking around the outside. This is a fast sweeping left-hander at turn 6, and it looks like Kobe Williams in the number 94 car just back in position 4 there. He's covering off from Jack Bussey. Been very impressive, has the Queenslander since making his debut in Formula Ford racing in the not too distant past. Doing a very good job, and I believe he's got a good. Sorry, I'm just having a look at that. Is Xavier Kokar up the inside of Jack Bussey as I'm talking about there. So coming onto the main straight, they'll be line astern, coming past the start-finish line once again. But it's Hillier with half a second up his sleeve from Santa Lucia, Harrison Sellers, Kobe Williams, Xavier Kokar in position 5, Jack Bussey, Zach Lopko in position 7, Connor Summers, Matthew Holmes in position 9, and Joe Fawcett rounding out the top 10 up the inside. This is looking a little bit spirited here. That's the number 11 car of Fraser High, who's defending from, is that his, that looks like the number 1 car.
Him, and then Matthew Holmes, and then Bailey Collins, I believe, in that conga line, all racing nose to gearbox.
Up the back stretch once again, Matthew Hillier, who's also competing in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Scholarship Series in season 2023. He's got a fairly packed racing program this season, but doing a brilliant job in Formula Ford nonetheless. He made an immediate impact, and that's Connor Summers right out the outside. A little bit of airtime there, and locking up the brake, but he keeps it nice and
well
tidy.
To get that gathered up. He'll be very, very pleased that they added that additional tarmac over the top. In the old days where that was just grass, and particularly damp grass as it would be today, it's generally a very fast trip into the Armco from there, so did well to get away with that.
Did extremely well. There's only 40mm clearance on these cars. That's as low as they can go according to the regulations. So after that bump or brush with the grass and a little bit of airtime, I dare say his backside's feeling a little bit sore. There's not too much clearance underneath these cars. Beautiful little technical package. About 510 kilos, there or thereabouts, 135 horsepower. And lots of young guns making their way through their Australian motor racing and worldwide racing careers, getting their start right here, right now in the Australian Formula Ford Series. Now, this is a great battle as well as this Strickland is leading
by the looks of this little battle pack.
Strickland just behind him as well. So this is the battle for position 13. No matter where you look in the Australian Formula Ford Series, you will see battles throughout the entire field with, at the moment still, is that the number 47 car Strickland is defending hard from Bailey Collins, who's got a significant toe, as Paul was alluding to. It could be worth up to 10 kilometres an hour along these long main straights there. Big brake lock up from someone coming into turn 9.
Say tyre in trouble by the looks of that, coming into Dandy Road corner at the bottom of the hill there. Someone's going to have a 50-cent piece under the at the moment. They'll be feeling the vibration from that too. When you have a lock-up and flat spot a tyre, you definitely get the vibration through the steering wheel if it's the front, or through your spine if it's a rear tyre.
And we should point out as well that they get one set of Yokohama AO48s at the start of the weekend. So they bolt them on for qualifying. That's where they're absolute freshest through the weekend. There's Cody Mains running up the inside of Joe Fawcett, and that looks like Matthew Holmes looming in the background as well, with Fraser High leading this battle. So this is a very spirited battle for position 9. You can throw a blanket over them. They're incredibly close as they come through turn 4. Just to finish my point earlier, they get one set of tyres throughout the entire weekend, so they can't afford to be locking them up too much. They don't want to take too much life out of these tyres because they have to make them last throughout qualifying and the following 3 races as well. So they really have to try and make these tyres last as much as they possibly can. 2 wide going into turn 6. Joe Fawcett around the outside. Cody Mains running, holding down position 10. This is a fantastic battle, Paul.
Yeah, look, and I think we've got about another 2 or 3 cars at the back. So what have we got there? I'm going to say an 8 or 9 car train battling for what would be 9th position. So that's Formula Ford, absolutely to a T. No, we were talking about the technical package before, 510 kilos, 135 horsepower. No aerodynamic downforce. You notice that? No front or rear wings or diffusers under them. So it's all about the mechanical grip that can be generated by the suspension.
That's Kobe Williams.
Kobe Williams, and it looks like Jack Bussey out in the grass there as well. So not sure if we'll get a replay of that. Looks like it's over the top, and unfortunately Kobe looks well buried in there. Now it's whether they control that with localized yellows, or we may or may not see a safety car. They may just control that with yellows in the area. No, they have gone for the safety car.
Oh, and Jake Santalucia had an optimal opportunity there to take that lead away from Matthew Hillier before the safety car was called, but unfortunately for the car of Kobe Williams, get the suntan lotion out. He is beached and out of this one, so they'll have to get that car back reassessed, and hopefully it won't be too much effort to get that car turned around for tomorrow morning's race, which gets underway at 25 minutes past 10 Australian Eastern Standard Time tomorrow morning. That'll be the 9th race of the event, second race for Formula 4 throughout the weekend. Now you can see here quite a graphic example there of just how hard Matthew Hillier is working these tyres. So he's just trying desperately to keep as much heat and pressure in the Yokohama AO48s, and he's doing a brilliant job of basically drifting it down the main straight. You can see the patchwork style of the Sandown International Raceway as well with the tarmac, because there's been so many surface changes throughout its evolution, throughout the many decades of the Sandown International Raceway.
Here we go, we get a replay of what brought that to bear. It was at turn 1. Oh,
that was Bussey up the inside there with the lock brake.
Bussey did appear to be up the inside. We might get a better... No, I don't know that we'll get a... That's... I think that's the best we have got. So it doesn't show too much, but we can see it appears, yeah, Jack with the move down the inside, and 2 into 1 did not go, unfortunately.
In this case, unfortunate. So once again, we should point out and say big thanks to Victorian Freight Specialists, VFS, for throwing their support behind the Australian Formula Ford Series here this weekend.
Yep. And now we mentioned the fact that we've got the Formula Fords and the Formula Ford 1600s, and what the primarily alludes to is the original engine that has been running the category since 1969 was the old Ford Kent engine, or the Crossflow 1600, so a 1.6 litre pushrod engine, carburettor, making around about 110 horsepower. The modern cars from 2006 went to the twin overhead cam, fuel-injected Ford Duratec engine that came out of the Ford Fiesta of that era. Still 1600 cc's, but more modern design, so it gives about 135 horsepower, a little bit more horsepower, lighter weight engine. The Duratec cars also, it's a very, very subtle difference. They have a slightly wider wheel for the same tyre, which just makes the tyre sit better on that wheel, sits wider, and provides a little more grip than the Kent cars have as well.
It's also slightly more drivable as well. It's just a little bit more responsive for that driver when they're applying the throttle versus the old carburetted car. So here you can see Matthew Hillier well acquainted with the safety car restart procedure. He becomes the effective safety car in that number 2 Miguel, prepared by Sonic Motor Racing Services throughout the season 2023. When is he going to pull the trigger? When is he going to floor that throttle and get this race underway once again? You can see just how well behaved they are. They are so close and giving each other the minimal amount of space they possibly can between those cars. Absolutely lights the lead. So here he goes. He's got Jake Santa Lucia all over the back of him. That's the number 4 car. Harrison Sellers, Xavier Kokai up into P4, Connor Summers P5, Zach Logco P6, and they sprawl out. It looks like a dropped plate of spaghetti as they come into turn 1, and it is Hillier who still holds his own from Jake Santa Lucia. Coming under fire from Harrison Sellers in the Ultratech prepared car. Slams the door firmly shut as they come through turns 2, 3 and 4. A great restart once again with just over 3 minutes remaining in this race, Paul.
Absolutely, in a sense, really, really good to see that everyone was well behaved on that restart. When you've got a long straight like this, the last thing you want to do is go too early and then find that you've given that toe to the field and get drafted and lose 2 or 3 spots into turn 1. But here's Jake trying to get the move done over the top on the first lap. Waiting for the footage, did not make that stick, but what a drive.
Here's Harrison Sellers up the inside.
Sellers is having a look, and that is great racing amongst them. He just, Jake ran wide on that and has paid the penalty, dropping 2 places, and Kokai is looking to see if he can capitalise.
Cody Baines-Ruddy as well around the outside.
What a restart. This has been fantastic racing. Baines-Ruddy, and look at that is, again, Formula 4.
It's spitting rain as well. It's starting to rain out there on the circuit. You can actually see on the circuit just how wet it's starting to get. Now, this is going to throw a huge challenge to Matthew Hillier. He's got the car squirreling on the brakes.
Pioneer. This is...
and they're tiptoeing.
The last thing you want is a Formula 4, and look at them firing off in the... Yep, into turn 1 with that bit of water. The Pioneers are getting caught out, and they are spraying. Back to your dropped plate of spaghetti. It looks like one of them has gone around, and I think may have found the fence there. That was Imogen Radburn, I believe.
Oh, that's unfortunate for the number 29. And it's gone from a dry track to a wet track within a lap.
Indeed.
Here comes Kokai up the inside of Harrison Sellers. He's feeling a lot more comfortable in these conditions, and he will take away P2. So that's from position 7 up to P2, and this is the last lap.
The last lap.
So the board is being readied, and the teams will be on the radios to the drivers, letting them know that this will be the last dash for the checkered flag. But this one is not over. Xavier Kokai well and truly within touch of Matthew Hillier, the number 2.
He has about 100 metres to the run to the flag. Will that be sufficient for him to get the job done? I don't believe it will.
And he's going to do it. So Matthew Hillier hangs on, and across the line, that is Xavier Kokai just from Jake Santa Lucia, Harrison Sellers in P4, Fraser High up into P5. Eddie Bezic making up 6 positions on that lap alone to jump up into P6 ahead of Joe Fawcett, Bailey Collins, Connor Summers, Tom Davies and Cody Baines-Ruddy dropping down into P11. Now that is Harry Blanchard.
Harry Blanchard
in the number 3 car. He's off on drivers. Oh, and there's Zach Lobko as well. He's had it tangled there with another car. Can't quite see behind the trees, but that's coming through turns 11 and 12. Throws the belts off the car. He is very disappointed with that result. So that is Zach Lobko out of race 1, unfortunately. But that was a rather dramatic end, wasn't it, Paul?
Well, there's nothing like a little bit of rain at the right time. I think...
That's Lachlan Strickland, number
like
47.
Strickland and Lobko appear to have come together on that closing lap as well. Which in those conditions, I mean, just obviously very, very thrilling to watch. Terrible timing for the competitors, but here comes final results. Matthew Hillier finishing ahead of Xavier Kokai, Jake Santa Lucia, Harrison Sellers, Fraser He, Eddie Bezic, Joe Fawcett, Bailey Collins, Connor Summers and Tom Davies are your top 10.
Cody Baines-Ruddy P11 ahead of Jack Bussey in P12. He's got Jack Martin in his corner looking after him this weekend. Lachlan Evanet in position 13. Daniel Frugas, Matthew Holmes, Nick Mendez, Damon Woods, James Crozier in P18. And we've got Louis Kono in 19th, just ahead of Carly Fleming in P20 as well.
Then to the Formula Ford 1600s, Richard Davison has taken the win ahead of Peter Fitzgerald from Mark Zellner. Now we have Zach Lobko and Lachlan Strickland appearing to be classified. They did cross the line. It appears that, unfortunately for them, that incident may have occurred after the flag. Yep.
So Kobe Williams showing his one lap with Frank Harris and Lachlan Manif as well, not classified in this race. But that was a spectacular race one for Matthew Hillier. He actually extends his lead in the Australian Formula Ford Series table. He came into this round as the leader ahead of Zach Lobko and Xavier Kokai. Obviously, with Zach Lobko out of that race, it's going to have championship implications. I think the gap between himself and Xavier Kokai has closed ever so much, and there is a bit of a clean-up operation as well, just tidying up those cars of Lachlan Strickland and Zach Lobko. You can see they're looking rather philosophical on screen, looking at the bent wishbones on that car. Now, it doesn't look too bad on screen from what we can see here, Paul, but the team will be working tirelessly between now and race 2 tomorrow morning at 10:25. So there's plenty of time to get those cars back assessed and make sure that they can get them well and truly sorted. So, as we said, championship implications, but not for the winner of this race, Matthew Hillier, extending his lead in the championship. So that was race 1 of round 5 of the Australian Formula
Race
Ford
1, and we had
Series.
enough excitement for all three, but wait, there are 2 more to come tomorrow. We will see you back here, same bat channel, same bat place, different bat time.
Absolutely, and we should thank VFS Victorian Freight Specialists for supporting Formula Ford this weekend, especially on the broadcast for the Victorian State Race Series, as well as the Formula Ford Association corporate partners. We've got Yokohama, Dick Johnson Racing. As I said before, Dick Johnson Racing actually offer a prize for the winner of the 2023 series. The winner of the 2022 series, which was Valentino Astudi, actually had his outing in a bona fide Dick Johnson Racing supercars, the Helix supercar, just a couple of weekends ago at Queensland Raceway. On screen you can see the clean-up operation. So we should thank DJR Racer Industries, Castrol, Ferodo Racing, as well as Norwell Motorplex for throwing their support behind the Formula Ford Association of Australia. And we should put a big thanks to the volunteer officials working hard out there in rain, hail or shine. You can see they're spread pretty thin at the moment, trying to clean up a couple of accidents on track at the moment with that car of Imogen Radburn being lifted onto the back of a flat tow, but they're working tirelessly out there in what is probably regarded as probably one of the coldest race meetings on the Australian calendar. That is round 4 of the the Victorian State Race Series. So that's about it. We should take a bit of a break and catch our breath. Paul, thank you for joining us up here in the commentary box.
Always a pleasure to be calling motorsport with you, and even more so when there's such an exciting race and Formula Ford action. Can't wait to see what we get tomorrow.
Thank you, Paul. So coming up next, we've got Porsche 944 for their opening race of the weekend. We'll have Darren Smith and Jack Atley jumping behind the cans to call all of the action. Of course, the Victorian State Race Series proudly supported by 888 Home Loans throughout the season and multi-season deal with 888 Home Loans. So it's a big thank you to Cam McKinnon and the team at 888 Home Loans for throwing their support behind grassroots motorsport. We'll take a break up here in the commentary box. We'll catch our breath and we'll come back with more action very shortly.
Welcome back trackside here to what is starting to be a little bit of a damp Sandown International Motor Raceway, the home of horsepower. We'd prefer it to be dry. The rain has swept across the property during that last race with the Formula Fords. It's stopped raining now, so there was a little bit of ambient temperature about. So let's hope that the racing surface does dry off. It has got a slight sheen to it, so that certainly becomes an issue when we've got slick cars running slick tyres. The 944s coming up next don't run a slick tyre, and we look forward to seeing the 1-800 Lasagna Porsche 944 Challenge on track next, with support from Porsche Cars Australia, 888 Home Loans, AVI Technology and Pit Lane Clothing. And off the back of that, it's a very, very warm welcome here on a winter's afternoon to Sandown International Motor Raceway, to the 944s and Australia's Motorsport's very own Jack Atlee. Jack, welcome to Sandown and round 4 of the State Series.
Thanks very much, Darren. Fantastic to be back again at the beautiful Sandown International Raceway. It's been too long. We've had a couple of months away after completing the rounds at Phillip Island, and there has been plenty of news in the off-season. Number of changes, number of new guys, number of new cars, so there's a lot to get through, but we're definitely looking forward to this one this afternoon. And with a bit of rain, if you need a bit of spice, just add water, as they say. So it's certainly a very different looking grid if we look at race 1 today. El Presidente himself, Mark Torbitz, has finally cracked it for pole position, which is fantastic. Now, you'll notice as well, he's in a different car. He's in the Pool Master Bayside car, which is normally run by Andrew Jackman. I can confirm Jackman will be watching this pretty much from a poolside in Bali, I would imagine, a pool bar, no doubt. Certainly encouraged by that news that his car has been put on pole.
So, like Adam Brewer, he couldn't get over to Italy for the between round breaks.
No, exactly. No,
He's only gone to Bali.
Exactly, he's only gone to Bali. It's funny you should mention that, but we have got 3 guys at the moment who are normally running. It's a bit of a reduced field, but we've got 3 guys, all called Andy, and all out with shoulder reconstructions for this round.
Wow.
Andy Tudor is missing. He's in WA, so a big shout out to Andy Tudor, who's recovering from shoulder injury. Andy Jones, our English international driver, he's also having shoulder reconstruction surgery. And of course, the pool master himself, Andrew Jackman, as I said, and he will be telling, I would imagine, the whole resort that his car is currently sitting on pole position at Sandown.
And why wouldn't you?
Oh, exactly. And exactly. Adam Brewer coming out of the front row as well there. Great run by Ads in qualifying this morning. Really did a fantastic job there this morning to outpace Cameron Balla, who is the 4-time champion. And I can tell you a bit more news. The Balla car was going into some problems after qualifying. They found a hose leak in that car, so they've actually replaced the head gasket on that car pre-race. So we'll see how that goes. The Vendetta himself, Mark Verdino. What an absolutely cracking run by Mark. That's his best qualifying position so far. So he's coming out of the second row and out of row 4. After that, we're heading down to Chris Lewis-Williams, who's a 3-time multiple champion. Chris Lewis-Williams, we're calling him the Baron of Benalla, because anyone who's got a hyphen in his surname, and with the name of Lewis-Williams, he must be royalty. So he comes from Benalla. He is the Baron of Benalla, and he come off a race win at Phillip Island last time out. Now, here's the story. Joey Kellock, or as we're calling him now, Joey Opposite Lock. Joey Kellock's coming out of number 77 car. He had a gearbox issue in qualifying, so there's dramas up and down all this field, but he should be right to go for this race. Carter Fox, the young gun, number 7 on the car. You won't miss him. He's in the bright yellow car, so he's coming out of position 7 against the veteran Richard Howe. Now, Kellock and Howe, I can tell you a bit of a story there if we've got a moment as well.
We do, yes, we do.
Right, there was an interesting story. Joey Kellock and Richard Howe had a bit of a coming together at Phillip Island in the last round. Now, Joey Kellock's middle initial is actually F, right, for Francis. So if you look at his initials, it's JFK. Well, after the race and what they got out of the when they got out of the car, Joey Kellock called that the second attempt at a JFK assassination. And he also claims that he saw Dickie Howe standing on the grassy knoll. So that is the story with those two. They don't particularly love each other. There could be some hijinks in this race for sure, but Dickie Howe knows the game very, very well.
The interesting thing there that Jack Atlee always brings to the race call is a little bit of history, a little bit of learning for the kids. So if you don't know what JFK and the reference to the grassy knoll is, kids, grab out your Encyclopedia Britannica. That's showing my age, isn't it? Get on the internets, whatever they are, and look up JFK and the grassy knoll. There's a good history lesson there for you, mixed up in there. So don't worry about it. Whenever Jack Atlee mic's on in his pit lane clothing outfit, there's something to learn. Out of position number 9, James Mitchell in the 46. The stories and updates continue.
Indeed, Joshy Brisbane there is Josh Brisbane coming out of position 10, and you'll see if you look on the screens there the grassy knoll. Will we see Dickie Howe coming out of the grassy knoll late this afternoon? Who knows? It's a bit hard to tell, but with this rain, anything's possible.
That could be the grassy knoll on the back straight.
There's
even
another one.
Yeah, that's it. So let's be very, very careful what we do here, because if Dick Howe ends up on that grassy knoll, he's had a fair old mistake.
Well, I can tell you exactly, anything's possible when you get a bunch of 944s together. It is well known for being some of the closest racing you will get at, in any motorsport in Australia pretty much, but certainly today it was a very, very tight qualifying. Manny Manansoma now coming out of position 11, coming back from his a leg injury as well, so he has another injury, but he's all fighting fit. And Johnny Venoris rounds out the field in car 12. We're missing a few guys, as we said, so got to give a bit of a quick shout out to Timmy Wolf, the Wolfman himself, and Tony Andrzejewski, who we're missing up in Queensland at the Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge, of course. The GT3's racing up there. Andy Jackman's away, and we've got Keith Mariner, and also an expat driver who's normally with us, who's also got international duties this weekend. And of course, the 3 Westaways are also missing from this round. So again, with international duties this weekend.
Still a good field, 12 cars out there. The racing is always strong and hard. Looking forward to seeing what the Porsche 944s, with their great support package, they do attract some great sponsors. The 1-800 Lasagna Man himself, Porsche Cars Australia, 888 Home Loans, AVI Technology, Pit Lane Clothing, and from time to time Pullmaster as well. And that is the car that is sitting on the front row of the grid. Points coming into this round. First place is, well, the Baron of Benalla, Chris Lewis Williams. And I do like it. If you've got a hyphenated surname and you live in rural Victoria, you've got to be some descendant of royalty.
Correct.
Absolutely. I don't know where I go with the surname Smith. Just back to the grind, I guess. Cameron Bella, second in the championship, and that's something we don't see too often. Although, I guess over the last 3 years, we've seen it from time to time, haven't we? We've seen Cameron Bella sitting back there in the 55. Adam Brewer, fresh off a very refreshing holiday to Europe, having a ripping time over there with the family. Joey Callock in the 197. Mark Verdino is 5th. Ryan Woods, who's actually off the back of this grid. So Ryan has coming out of 6th place.
Had a really solid off in qualifying, Ryan Woods, this morning. Had a big hit going into Dandenong Road, so it'll be interesting to see whether that car is capable of finishing again. But he had a big hit in qualifying, so he was pushing hard, but a great driver.
Cars coming up to the grid now, 944s like to line up. The 56 coming into the lane, and the reports we have just heard is there's something dragging on that car, so it won't stop the start of this race. It's gone to the lane, so safe and sound behind here. It's going to be very, very interesting to try and switch the mind away from the black car being Mark Torbert's and not call both Brewer and Torbert's those cars. So Mark Torbert's in the Pullmaster car on pole position. It's been a while since he's been on the front row of the grid. In his own admission, he's been down on power in his car, and fantastic to see the big fella across the front of the grid. Plays in an exceptionally heavy metal band. I think it's even called death metal.
Coffin Carousel.
Coffin Carousel says it all. Gets a great start there. Mark Torbert's grabs second gear prematurely. Have a look at Joey Callock. He charges down the inside of the field there, as does Dick Howe. Howe just actually dives right across there, and is that CLW?
Joey Callock, is it, or CLW? Sorry, CLW. Baron of Benalla's hit the front already. So yeah, great start by Chris. Adam Brewer on the left-hand side, charging into turn 1. Verdino's got a great start as well.
Jamie Mitchell as well. Look at that, the 46. There's the Joey Callock car. Getting a good job done there as well. So Joey Callock coming out of 7th place on the grid. And just going back a couple of spots is the number 44. And where has Mark Torbert's gone? He's disappeared right back. There he is there.
Now he's had a bit of a shocker or fair bit of wheel spin, I would imagine, off the line there, trying to get that Pullmaster car away. But he's dropped right back and sits back in 6th as we head up the back straight here at Sandown. The Baron of Manila, though, he knows this track really, really well. Ads Brewer sitting there behind in the black car, and Cam Bella just biding his time, slots into 3rd.
So this is a tricky time in this track. It'll be a little bit greasy. There's the number 20 that sat on pole position, and Mark done a lot of racing in his 944, so knows his way around. He'll know just to take it easy for the first lap or so. The 17 now swathing his way through. That's Ryan Woods there, and he can come up the back of the grid up to about 6th or 7th place. Manny Menazelma, great to have him back in the 944s. Does a lot of different sorts of sports car type racing within the Porsche ranks. And Chris Lewis Williams across the strike and takes first lap from position 4. P1, Brewer up 1, Cameron Bella up 1, Verdino up 1, Joey Callock up 1 as well. Mark Torberts has gone back to 6th place. So not the ideal start for the guy sitting at the poolside in Bali, telling all his newfound friends at the bar that that was his car on pole position.
No, it's a bit of a shame. Joey Callock, Joey opposite lock, of course. Oh, always exciting, always great to watch. Goes flying off the track there at turn 1. He gets really hard into turn 1 and looks like he's slipped on both the grass and the lasagna trays as he's come into turn 1 there, but he'll fight back. He's got El Presidente, Mark Torberts, sitting right on his bumper now, and Mark's trying to recoup some of that losses off the grid, but Joey and El Presidente are going to go tooth and nail all the way up this long back straight at Sandown.
Cameron Bella now into position number 2, and the hunt is on for Chris Lewis Williams. And to be in all seriousness, Cameron Bella needs to win this. He needs to start to claw back this advantage, some 20 points, some 16 points away from Chris Lewis Williams at the front of this race. There's Mark Torberts in the Pullmaster Bayside entry, and he'll be now starting to really try hard to keep this car going well. He's got to try and track down the Lasagna Man. Well, in fact, he already has. He's gone through on Joey Callock, the 1-800 entry. Oh, and he's slip sliding away all over the place there in the 77. It looks like the car of Ryan Woods is going to make another place up. Joey Callock sweeps wide, keeps the revs into it, and Bella, fastest lap on lap number 2. So he is waving the flag at Chris Lewis Williams, saying, it's not a white flag, mate, it's a I'm coming to get you flag.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like pretty greasy conditions. Pardon the pun, dare I say it, there with Joey Callock. It's greasy conditions all around, because you can see even the Baron of Benalla was sliding around going into turn 1, but Cam Bella now only half a second behind. And you can see Ryan Woods there moving up, and that's a great performance by Ryan Woods. He's been in the game for a number of years. He's a pretty experienced campaigner, been running HQ Holdens for a while as well, but flows the car really, really well. So he's going to get the most out of these conditions, and had a big off, as I said, in qualifying. Here we go. This is for the fight, the battle for the lead, and Cam Bella takes it through Dandenong Road corner. That's certainly courageous, and in these conditions, that's a sensational performance. He's hard on the brakes now, down the bottom of Dandenong Road, and he'll drive it out, but he gets round Chris Lewis Williams there, back into his usual, dare I say, comfortable position of leading the field.
I wouldn't get too comfortable if I was Cam Bella. Chris Lewis has clearly got pace on board. He hasn't got it to match it and quite in the lap time now, but this race will go for about 11 or 12 laps, and Chris Lewis Williams he's no, well, let's say he's been to more than one of these rodeos before. He'll know that first of all, not let Cam Bella skip away from him, because then that makes it really hard. But he will try to go with Bella. Yep. 1:28.3, 1:12. So 2 fastest laps in a row in this race to Cam Bella. And it is his own lap record that he's chasing down at a 1:24.0. So these conditions are, we're losing 4 seconds a lap. So yes, they are slippery. They're, I guess it's probably one of the more ideal categories to have out in this these sort of conditions. They do run an all-weather tyre, albeit a racing-bred type of Yokohama. In fact, a real thoroughbred type of tyre they are, developed over many years. Manny Menazelma finding his way back to the racetrack and ticking some boxes nicely there. He's gone through on Richard Howe. He now finds his way past, what was that?
Jimmy Mitchell.
Yeah, Jimmy Mitchell as well. So going through on that very smartly livered Martini livery, I guess you'd call that, on that car. Looks very, very nice indeed. Missing Keith Mariner actually in the field there. His car always looks beautiful out on track. So Absolutely. Keith, if you're watching, The man with the big K on the side of his helmet.
On the British, it's almost like a Nigel Mansell kind of helmet.
It
He's
is
got
like the Union Jack type of stylised half.
Our English expat driver. We've got a few of the international guys who are unfortunately away in the European summer at the moment. And you can see Dickie Howe now trying to claw back against Jimmy Mitchell. But yeah, of course, we're missing Keith Mariner and we miss him very much in this race. He would be usually fighting with these guys, no doubt about it. But Manny Manazoma, great performance to come back again. He's an experienced campaigner. He's been off racing GT3s, so he certainly knows high-end Porsche machinery, and he's no slouch when it comes to competing against these guys.
Carter Fox in the number 7 there, just menacing in the background here. You get the feeling if the wily veteran Richard Howe makes any sort of mistake in the number 8 there, the number 7 will be all over him. And Carter Fox just staying on the outside here. This could be on for it. This actually could be a side-by-side match race down the straight here between the 7 and 8. The 8 moves right back over, plugs the gap. Car 10, 46, 8 and 7. And we are fighting it out, really, for 8, 9, 10 and 11 on the road. We've lost Jimmy Venoris somewhere along the way.
Indeed, that's a shame for Johnny Venoris, yeah.
John Venoris, sorry.
He's dropped out. You've got really the real veteran legend of the game, royalty himself in Dickie Howe there in the Porsche.
I don't know about royalty.
Wouldn't you? You wouldn't go royalty. I'd go royalty. Really? You wouldn't say
I don't think so.
Wow.
I don't think he'd wear a crown well.
No, he might. I don't.
He might be inclined to throw it at you.
I can imagine the language if you were try to offer him a crown too.
That's right.
But he knows the game very well. I was just going to more so compare him to the young hard charger.
Yeah,
the Prince, dare I say, the Prince in the yellow number 7.
Definitely princely there as well.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
Well, almost royal gold there he's wearing at the moment, but he's really charging up against Dickie Howe. Carter Fox, I can say, coming off another leg injury not too long ago. We seem to have a lot of injuries in this category for some reason lately, but
well, they're not at the racetrack. They're all like in training, like the hard physical training.
Well, I mean, you know, that's how hard these cars are to drive, Daz. They're just so physically demanding that all these guys are going out with shoulder reconstructions, and it's unbelievable.
It's interesting. You were touching on Ryan Woods there before, coming from HQ Racing. The style of racing is fairly similar. The kind of race cars are not. These are a very nicely balanced, thoroughbred German-built race car, whereas the HQ are a very thoroughbred Australian-built taxi. And the thing with the HQs is that it's about flowing them. You've got to keep the revs up. And that's where Ryan has been able to translate the ability to do that, because that's what rewards you in a 944. There's enough horsepower to have fun, but you don't want to lose your track speed.
Without a doubt. And in fact, if you're too heavy on the brakes, seriously, if you're too heavy on these brakes in these cars, you just don't have the momentum to get you out of the corner like a lighter car might be, like to flick an open wheeler car. So these things need to be flown. They need to be very, very smooth. And the guys that are up the front, that's what they do very, very well, is their smoothness and silky skills of like Cameron Balla or the Baron of Manila. All have very, very smooth driving techniques, and that is where you get the lap times out of these 944s. They're perfectly balanced, but in these conditions, you really need to keep the momentum up through all the corners.
Have a look at this, switching spots on the track here. This is Mark Torbitz and Mark Verdino. So Verdino in the sidelink car leading the way over Mark Torbitz in the Pullmaster Bayside entry there. Not his normal speed, but fantastic that he's on track with this car. Got himself on pole. The first lap didn't quite play out the way he'd like to. LK Diesel service from Brayside emblazoned across the front of this car as well. So they're doing a tremendous job racing these two. And you can still see there's a bit of shine on the track and the tyre marks going through them. So I would suggest by the time we finish this 944 race and we've got Formula V's on track, there's a bit of, the sky's a lot brighter. I think we've seen the last of the rain here for this weekend. So if you're planning on coming out tomorrow, I can guarantee you, bring a jacket, but you won't need an umbrella. It's going to be a lovely day here tomorrow.
Exactly, and we know where we can get some jackets and umbrellas as well, that's for sure. But
yeah, well, Pit Lane Clothing, of course, one of the title sponsors of this category.
Jump on board and they'll definitely sort you out with some great jackets. But of course, yeah, you're right. The track is seen to be drying there a little bit. You've got the Vendetta himself in the sidelink car, Mark Verdino, just trying to stay ahead of El Presidente, who is not going to mess around. He's going to have a lunge, that's for sure. We're probably looking at a couple of laps to go, 2 or 3 laps to go, judging on lap times as well. So the fastest one we're currently sitting on is Cambella, still on a 125.3 at the moment. So there's a real opportunity for these guys to have a lunch.
Great reminder, tickets available at the gate today and tomorrow. We've only got a couple of races left here, but if you're nearby, certainly come down and swing in and have a look. But if you're anywhere in Victoria, southern New South Wales, even Adelaide, you could still get here for the racing tomorrow. You could even hear the voice of Dan McCarthy. He calls Melbourne or Adelaide home these days. He's just that kind of, cosmopolitan operator.
Global.
Global Dan, that's what we call him.
Yeah.
And, come and have a listen, have a watch, come and join all the action here. Enjoy it in all the senses, live and in 3D. It's great to get trackside. And if you can't, join us on the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championship broadcast right across the world on internet and television.
Well, exactly. We've got guys definitely tuning in from places like London and Bali to watch this race. So it's definitely a global, telecast. Thank you, Daz. Exactly. And we've certainly got a lot of interested parties regarding this category as well. So, yeah, Cambella has again now, as we said, just settled into a routine out in the front. You've got the Baron of Manila, Chris Lewis-Williams, just slotting in behind him. Adam Brewer, what's he going to do? Is he going to have a crack here? I don't know. I mean, he's just sitting neatly behind Chris Lewis-Williams there. He's certainly keen to have a crack. I mean, he's having a great run and a great championship. He's currently sitting second in the championships, Adam Brewer, so he's no slouch behind the wheels, and he loves this Sandown place.
Carter Fox down the inside of
Mitchell.
The Mitchell car gets it done. Good drive there, the number 7, Carter Fox.
Well done.
Carrying the Blendline TV logo just under the rear deck spoiler on his car there, so ensuring he gets plenty of airtime there, carrying the broadcast partner's livery.
The Prince is we're now calling Carter Fox the Prince.
The Prince.
Exactly. So the Prince is now.
So who's the pauper? Jack Atley.
I wouldn't go that far.
Jack Atley and Darren Smith.
Exactly. Certainly paupers, all right. The Vendetta and El Presidente still going nose to tail as they go through the far section of Dandenong Road. They're great to see those two really battling it out right to the last corner.
I can't believe that the illustrious Porsche 944 Porsche series has turned into ute racing of the early 80s with all the nicknames coming out here. The El Presidente, the Vendetta.
Well, we've got to let...
Lucky Stephen White's here somewhere. We might have the White Dog come in here and join us at some point.
Exactly. He is floating around exactly somewhere around. But how close is this for racing? This is what I mean, Daz, about the 944 Challenge Series. You will not get closer racing than this anywhere in Australia.
So we did prove that earlier on last year, didn't we, by 0.001 of a difference in the finish time on the line there. So
crazy.
Started to fan out across the track here. Mark Torbitz is going to have a crack at Verdino. Not being able to do it. The side link car still hangs on. But I am throwing it down to Adam Brewer now to put a move on CLW as quick as he can. Adam Brewer is sitting third in the championship. He's within 20 points of Cambella, but he's a fair way off Chris Lewis-Williams at the moment, so he needs to put him behind him as we watch the tail end of Torbitz and Verdino fighting it out for 4th and 5th on the road. In the background now. Well, Ryan Woods, is there time? No, I dare say we will get the last lap board come out this time around. I don't think Ryan Woods is going to get on with this one. Well, maybe with 2 to go, we might get it.
No.
Gee, there's some trust if you're going to go side by side there, Mark Torbitz, and he might be telegraphing a message to Mark Verdino. Not sure I trust you, mate, to go around wide here with you. Let's wait another lap. Let's see what happens.
Very, very, very close racing, and that's the fastest corner on this track at Sandown. So, yeah, you've really got to have faith in the guy you're sitting next to. He's hard on the brakes there, El Presidente, really trying to get this job done. But the Vendetta himself is really staying ahead and doing a fantastic job. And now they're going to head into the last lap. I mean, is he going to have a lunge? He'd have to have a go for sure. Chris Lewis-Williams there. The Baron of Manila pops up with the fastest lap on the last lap of the race.
1:25.145, so we're about 1.1 seconds away from the lap record. Verdino covering off that short line there as well. Torbitz not really being able to use the faster flowing line to any distinct advantage at this point in the race.
No, exactly. He just can't quite get around him. Although he's very, very close there. Slightly slippery there from the Vendetta. He's gone underneath him. Can he get it done? Now, this will be a real long drag race all the way
Look at Ryan Woods.
straight.
Look at Ryan Woods there, Jack Atley.
Woodsy's come into it as well. They're all going hammer and tong as they head up the long back straight with half a lap to go. Looking for the leaders.
Mark Torbett's lights ablaze. Ryan Wood tucks in behind him. He chooses his running partner up the inside here. He was on the outside last lap around. He's got the inside running. He'll hold the corner.
Oh.
This is going to be some trusting racing here. Verdino takes the brave pills.
Wow.
Shoves it up there. Talking about shoving it. Ryan Woods shoves it off into the dirt. Catches it before he does. You've got to have a crack. But Bella takes the win. Chris Lewis-Williams and Adam Brewer. That's how they finish, all on the Le Mans flashes there, just letting everybody know, hey, check out tomorrow, because by 10:50 tomorrow morning, we're going to be doing this all over again, and we're going to change these results around.
Absolutely. Really, really tight racing again. Cam Bella, though, the four-time champion, just gets the job done ahead of the three-time champion, Chris Lewis-Williams, and Adam Brewer right up the top of the championship. So that is such close racing, and very, very close on points. Mark Verdino, the Vendetta himself, sensational performance to hold off El Presidente. We're just seeing the final guys head towards the line now, with Manny Manzelma just in front of the veteran, and dare I say it, the king himself. Tricky
Cool to
Dicky
see
Howe.
Manny Manzelma back on track here.
Yeah.
Really good to see him back at the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships, the Triple Eight home loans entries here this weekend, doing a ripping job.
Carter Fox, the Prince, crossing the line there. How close was this? This is a replay now as they see all three guys charging hard. That is a really tight corner. Woodsy just lost it there, just got the rear too light, coming down in the bottom of Dandenong Road. Again, at greasy conditions, you're really in a match play fight there, so he just lost it under braking. But you can see the final results there. Cam Bella, silky skills of Cam Bella, gets the job done. The Baron of Benalla himself, Chris Lewis-Williams, comes home in second. From Adam Brewer, the Vendetta, Mark Verdino, El Presidente, Mark Torbett's, Ryan Woods home in 6, Joey opposite Lock in 7, Manny Manzelma making up the top 8, the King himself, Richard Howe, and then the Prince, Carter Fox, rounds out the top 10.
Long live the King. James Mitchell to John Benoris, Josh Brisbane not taking any further part. Jack Atley, thank you as always for the very lively race call. Very, very entertaining. And we will see you tomorrow for race number 2 for the weekend at 10:50, and then you'll be all frothing at the mouth by 2:30 for the last race of the weekend.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, we'll just wipe the froth away.
Indeed.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Thank you very much,
right.
Das.
You wonder why we've got the baby wipes in here, Jack.
I was
That's to
wondering what
make
they
sure
were
it's all
for.
cleaned up before we go on air.
Thank you for that. Farewell.
Thank you, Jack. Doing a fantastic day here at round 4 of the State Race Series. Of course, the Complete Race Driver, Think Race Win. The Complete Race Driver is a unique online race driving school for rookies and amateurs, professionals and champions, and everyone in between. When you join, you'll get the access to over 6 hours of video and diagrams, onboards and reading material with over 60 lessons to help you to improve your driving. The course contains information and fundamentals of what it will take to drive a race car, as well as advanced techniques, tips and tricks. This course has been designed by an Australian engineer who worked with the drivers of such reputation as Jamie Whincup, Marcus Ambrose, Mark Winterbottom, Will Power, and more than his 30 years career in motorsport. Online race driving school for drivers of all levels of experience. One-time fee that never expires. You can come back and back again to learn at your own pace. Learn key fundamentals and advanced techniques, designed and presented by Wes McDougall, Australian engineer, for all of those names I mentioned before. Professional motorsport experience both here in Australia and overseas. 10% off for the Victorian State Race Series drivers if you members mention the code VSRS10. A fantastic service for all race car drivers, and Wes McDougall. If you've been around, you'll know the name from the supercars, telecasts, and all sorts of bits and pieces going on around the place. Not too far away from getting Formula V's on track. We'll be back in just a moment.
quick turnaround. Off go the 944s, and straight away we are on with Formula V race number 1 of their weekend. I'm alongside the man who's commentated more Formula V races than I think anybody in the nation. It's Steve DeFries.
Thank you very much, Dan McCarthy. Good afternoon, everybody. Back again. Improved production was a bit earlier in the day for me. Back with Formula V in the latter stages of the afternoon. Good to see a healthy field of 22 Formula Vs out here on track, despite the fact there's a few of the regular drivers missing. It's good to see a healthy turnout. It's a bit of a different grid for them for the last couple of rounds, because they did have an extra club round in between the two VSRS rounds, but more on that in a few moments' time. Unsurprisingly, on pole position for this one is Reef McCarthy in the Beecham Racing Sabre 02. He's been the dominant force in Formula V for the last several seasons. Ash Clifford also in the Sabre 02 in the StarRes.com entry. He's managed to move up to the front row of the grid. Been a long time between front row starts for Ash Clifford. Andre Curran and Brandon Taylor on the next row of the grid, 3rd and 4th respectively. Again, more Sabre 02 machinery there for the number 32 and the number 29. Jake Rowe, former State Series champion, in position number 5, ahead of Nick Jones in the Silver Fox Racing Sabre 02, and then Lee Partridge and Heath Collinson in 7th and 8th. 2nd through to 8th in qualifying, only separated by 0.5 of a second, so not a lot in it between positions 2 through 8. Then we get to the back end and of the top 10 and the midfield with Damien Spinello for the Acura team, Gavin Stubbs out of 10th, and John Casamani and Samuk Rudrapatna 11th and 12th. Newcomer there in Jason Kay in 13th, from Malachi Windsor, Josh Munro, Cameron Bell and Charlie Richardson, Mick Fisher, Phil Gardner, Kelly Egan and Ayrton Filippi, last man on the grid. Actually got 22 listed down here on our sheet, but it looks like Darren Power is the one that has not made the journey, unfortunately, so it is 21 starters for this race.
Make that 20, because I don't see Filippi out there on the racetrack. Oh, there.
He's actually got a new paint job, that's why you didn't see him. It's a blue car instead of a green car for Ayrton Filippi at the back of the grid. Now, I reckon a few of these drivers would have been quietly being a bit worried after the little rain shower during the Formula Ford race and just wondering what avenue they went with. It's a bit of a dry track now. All that sheen on the circuit has virtually gone. There'll probably be a few wet painted lines that they'll have to stay away from, and a few wet curbs as the lights go on and the lights go out for race 1 for Formula V, with thanks to GR Motorsport Electrics Online. And unsurprisingly, at the jump there, Reef McCarthy getting the better of the start over Ash Clifford, who tucks into the slipstream of the number 61 as quickly as he possibly could, and they fan out 3 wide, as is a custom here at the very, very wide front straightaway on approach to turn 1.
Jake Rowe had the best start from the 3rd row of the grid, already up to position number 3, and having a look on the back of Clifford. So a blinding start from the former state champion.
Oh, Clifford, big moment, turn there, and some contact with Rowe, and that's impeded and blocked the avenue off for Andre Curran and for Brandon Taylor, the men that were 3rd and 4th on the grid. Unfortunately, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They haven't made contact with these two, but they've just been caught up in that mess. Now, I didn't see whether Clifford dropped that on his own. Oh, they're going to have a bit of drama here trying to unlock themselves, and they've thrown the safety car just to be safe. Hands up. That's the way it goes, and they've actually managed to unlock themselves. So, a little bit fortunate there that they've got the safety car to recover back to the back of the pack. They haven't lost too much time as a result of that, but I'm wondering, is Clifford going to get going again there? Yes, he is. That was a bit awkward.
Oh, it certainly was. Clifford, it looked like all by himself, just lost the rear, as you said, on one of those white lines, potentially around he went. And real shame there. I think there was damage, though, to that Clifford machine. I think a little bit of steering damage or something in that, the left front corner. I think it was a right front corner. Didn't look quite right to me, and we could see Jake Rowe limping back around to the front pit straight as well. So yeah, really awkward start, and that's eliminated so many of the contenders, because of course Curran was involved in that as well, and yeah, several of our contenders, Clifford, Curran, Taylor, and of course out there as well, Rowe. So many of our contenders falling by the wayside on lap number 1.
Let's have another look at this down at turn 3 and 4 on the Blendline TV replay. So it was a clean start. Jake Rowe moved up to 3rd place, having started on the 3rd row of the grid. And keep an eye on the second car in the queue here, the black and yellow Star Res machine at Ash Clifford. Just got away with it, and that's when the steering damage remains that secondary contact. The backing into the grass there of Ash Clifford, his left front tyre making contact with Rowe's left front tyre. And then this is a bit of a jigsaw puzzle here. It's how do we unlock ourselves from here? One goes forward, one goes back, one goes back, the other goes forward, and eventually they figure out how to unlock themselves. And there you go, Jake Rowe got the right idea there to back away from the number 17 Star Res machine, and then he was free.
Not what they were after, that is for sure. It should be a quick safety car, though, but we can confirm Jake Rowe has come into the pit lane. Clifford's still out there on the racetrack.
As he actually pulled over, he hasn't registered a lap yet. No, there he is. He's still travelling around the circuit. So he might be okay, but I think from a safety point of view, he might not feel comfortable. I would not be surprised to see if he comes into pit lane, just given the speed he's travelling at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised to see him head off to the right-hand side of the circuit and stay just within that pit boundary entry line there, and he does, and that's probably the smart call, because you don't want something to fail in the middle of the race. Now, with all of that, there was a jump start penalty issued for Cameron Bell. He's in position 15 at the moment, so he's going to have 5 seconds added to his race time. He's just coming into shot now here, the number 4 machine that was at the top of the hill, heading down through the S's now. And the safety car is indeed coming in this lap. Now, for Andre Curran, who's caught up in that little bit of a mess, that's going to ruin what has been a really, really good season for him so far, because he is in the thick of it for 2nd overall in the championship. There's 3 points separating 3 drivers battling it out for 2nd, 3rd and 4th at the moment.
Certainly is. We'll get it in just for this restart. Nick Jones on 203 points in 2nd, and both Lee Partridge and Curran just 3 points behind, both on 200 points.
And both those drivers are in that top 4 that are ahead of Andre Curran at the moment. They're 2nd and 4th on the road right now, so this is a big point swing if Curran can't make up some ground.
Certainly is. Very slow on the restart. Brilliant start, though, by Lee Partridge, by the looks of it, who pulls out of the line. He crossed the line in 4th position. The only issue he's got, though, is he's got no one to tow on that outside line, and a tow is so vitally important around this race circuit, down the pit straight and the back straight, and it stays as it was when they cross the line. McCarthy, Jones, Collinson and Partridge, although Partridge having a bit of a look down into turn number 2. Not really an overtaking opportunity in the V's.
No, definitely not an overtaking opportunity in the V's into turn number 2. It's primarily into turn 1 and then into 6 and 9 in the last couple of corners. That's where most of the passing happens in Formula V. Curran's recovered well, though. He's picked up about 4 or 5 spots already, having sort of been almost close to plumb last after that incident at turn 4. And you're right. Partridge was very much the pioneer at that restart. He got the good jump, but he just unfortunately could not do anything with it, and nobody wanted to go with him, as we see it. Not only a change for the lead with Jones going ahead of McCarthy, but Brandon Taylor has been issued a penalty for 5 seconds for a safety car restart infringement. He would have been down the back as well.
He must have been overtaking or overlapping before the start line, so his race has gone from bad to worse, because he was one of the lead contenders caught up in that squabble and incident down at turn number 4, so his race going from bad to worse. But the good news is he's got 9 minutes to make ground, even with that 5-second penalty, and that's one of the good things that has come out of Vic State, changing from a lap count to a minute count in recent times.
Yeah, that's right. The impetus is not on how many laps you have remaining, it's on how much time you have remaining to be able to make any changes in the running order as McCarthy goes back to the head of the queue. But for Brandon Taylor, he had a stellar run at the Pyack Super Sprint round last month, where Formula V conducted 3 races and a qualifying session intermixed with all the sprint meetings that went on at that particular time. And in the wet 3rd race, his recovery was absolutely incredible. He stormed through after having a spin of his own and ended up 2nd on the road behind McCarthy. He did a monster amount of overtaking in the wet, and it was a very, very measured and outstanding performance. And right now, he's just in that backer shot there. He's just gone past Gavin Stubbs. He's just now rounding up, I think that's Jason Jason Kay in the Acura Motorsport machines. The number 29 black machine just coming over the top of the hill, just behind the two pair that we're looking at here, Casamati and Spinello. Then there's another two pair of Munro and Rudrapatna, and then comes Brandon Taylor. So at the moment he is inside the top 10, and he's definitely got a little bit of pace to burn here.
Curran's continued to march through the field up to 13th last time, and I think might have picked off a couple more on this lap as well. Of course, last time the V's were on at Phillip Island, there's an incident between McCarthy and Curran. McCarthy spinning in front of the field and was collected by Curran. Fortunately, both of them repaired and back out for this round. As you say, McCarthy dominated the club round at Phillip Island a few weeks ago. I couldn't believe the margin he won that final race by. I wasn't there to witness it, but I was looking at the timing sheets going, it's like 40 seconds.
It was a massive amount of margin over several laps. Absolutely incredible drive in the wet from McCarthy. And you're right, he only had that car turned around about a week prior to that event, so there wasn't a lot left on the table. They were very close to missing the event just by virtue of all the repair work that had to be done. And you just see how low the cars are running. They're running right to the minimum amount, kicking up the sparks, and a couple of cars leaving the turn 4 exit curb. So that's not something you see every day in Formula V.
No, certainly isn't, but that shows just probably why McCarthy is so fast, running the car as low as he possibly can. But he's been challenged by Nick Jones in this race, that is for sure. He hasn't romped away to take the victory in this one. He's having to fight for it, and Jones takes it up back at the front of the field. Partridge is now in second ahead of the reigning Vic State champion Heath Collinson, who is still yet to take a race victory this year.
Yeah, this has not been Heath Collinson's year. He's had a few little indiscretions and a few offs and things that have just not gone his way. He just hasn't had the pace that we've had from last year, where we saw him fighting at the front continually with Reef McCarthy, taking it all the way up to the final race of the final round of the series. So Brandon Taylor's moved his way up the order. Check this out as the cars leave the turn 4 exit curve. The first two cars there, and just got the sparks kick up. McCarthy was just almost the car sat up on the curb, didn't it? He had two wheels that were backside the curb, two wheels in bounds. He's got almost all four wheels out of bounds there at turn 1 as he really pushes the limit. I can see that it looks like, is that Ash Clifford? Yes, it is. Ash Clifford actually is back out on the circuit. The JRD crew turning around that car and just sanity checking it before sending him out to at least get some laps in.
Not only that, but points go down to 20th, and with Jake Rowe out in pit lane still, if he finishes the race, albeit 3 laps down, it'll still be 1 point, and that 1 point may be crucial come the end of the championship, with Clifford not too far behind Heath Collinson in 6th position in the standings at the moment.
Here goes Casamati. He's making a defensive holding move on Damien Spinello, who's come into his own in that number 49 Jacer for the Acura Motorsport stable. There's been some gremlins in the number 25 camp as well for John. There's been, since his accident at Winton, where he actually hit the turn 2 wall, they had to replace the front end on that car, and there's been some sort of unusual knocking or vibrating in the front end where he just had no confidence under brakes and he'd go backwards in a race situation. It looked like they finally got that problem fixed. A little bit of mechanical, of the mechanical platform was actually rubbing on the front H-beam, and they completely missed it until they spotted it yesterday afternoon when McCarthy actually jumped in the car and took it for a run, and even he couldn't drive it, but they then identified what the cause was. So I think John's very much in a happier place than what he was for the last 2 rounds. And, you know, it's like the old Daniel Ricciardo adage, you know, once you pick up some bad habits driving a car that is not suited to your liking, once you get it fixed, you've got to break those habits really quickly. Otherwise, they just become, you know, ingrained in your brain to the point where they're with you forever.
That's right, second nature, absolutely. You've got to unlearn those bad habits, and we can now see Partridge has joined the front 2, and they're going to go 3 wide up the back straight towards the very first turn, number 6, the fast left-hander, and Partridge might get them both as he swings it round the outside, and he does. 3rd to 1st for Lee Partridge. We've got ourselves a new race leader in this race. So Partridge, McCarthy, Jones, and let's not count out at Heath Collinson just yet.
He nipped across in front of McCarthy rather smartly before the apex of turn 6, Lee Partridge, and he had a race win here at the beginning of the year. It was his first win in over 20 years in Formula V racing, and he's looking for another here with just under 3 minutes left on the clock. But positions will always change fairly quickly in Formula V, as they always do. Collinson's now starting to make his move a little bit. He's latched onto the back of this top 4. Casamati's trying to get within striking distance of the number 31 Sabre 02 of Heath Collinson, as Jones throws it up the inside as Partridge surrenders the lead down the front straight. And then Brandon Taylor's just starting to move into the picture here. He actually just set the fastest lap on the previous tour. He was faster than by 1/10 of a second over Casamati, and he was substantially quicker. There he is. They were substantially quicker than this lead group of 5 cars.
Yeah, exactly. Casamati's now caught up to the train of 4 to make it a not a quartet but a quintet, and it could even become a group of 6. But yes, with the little asterisk for Taylor with the 5-second penalty for that restart infringement, as McCarthy finds his way back to the head of the field, makes his way through on Jones. But this is some classic Sandown Formula V action that we are being shown early on in the weekend. I'm sure there's plenty more of this to come, but there's still some wet patches, particularly on that back straight. And it certainly will make life difficult. And we saw the result of a wet painted white line on lap number 1. So can't get too carried away and in the moment just yet. And all of a sudden, McCarthy's put his foot down. Yeah. He's trying to break away with just a minute and a half left. I reckon that's pretty much 1 or 2 laps. Not quite sure whether we're going to get 1 or 2 in. There's a yellow flag down at turn number 1 I can see being waved. So somebody must be off the road down there at turn 1. And here is a replay.
And there's a coming together there. Who's that? That's Malachi Windsor, who's lost a front nose cone in the Acura Motorsport 88. And I didn't see who the second car was. There was another car involved in that.
It was a black machine, but I didn't see who it was myself either.
No, it's just a bit too late in the piece to get that there. But you're right, I was sort of looking at this for a moment thinking this is not really a McCarthy-esque performance at the moment, because usually, as we've seen in the last couple of rounds, he's been able to put his foot down and pull away and get a margin early. It's taken him a little bit of time to do that in this race. He's now starting to edge clear of the chasing pack, and you can tell because he's weaving on the back straight here. We're getting the call that this is the second last lap, so there'll be 1 more to go after this is over, so it'll be a 10-lap race.
That's very, very good news as they head down into Dandenong Road. McCarthy's bolted. McCarthy has gone. Jones is trying to keep up with him, and it seems to be the battle for 3rd position at this particular point in time, but I'm sure Partridge will have something to say about that, because Jones will not be in tow range of McCarthy. He may be a sitting duck as they exit the final corner and begin the final lap. Is Jones close enough to McCarthy to get a tow? I don't think so. Certainly Partridge is close enough to Jones to get a tow, and certainly as well Heath Collinson. In fact, Collinson will have a look at the 28 machine of Partridge down towards turn number 1, but you can't overtake there. Heath has to file back in behind. The yellow flags are still out for that rogue nose cone, and there it is. So no overtaking down at turn number 1 on this occasion. It remains as it is.
It's the other car that's on the other side of the circuit. It's Charlie Richardson, who's come to a stop on the driver's left after turn number 1. That's the other car, and the reason why the yellow flags are out. It's not so much for the nose cone, it's for the stricken vehicle on the other side of the track. But McCarthy edged out the margin by another half a second on that lap. Back-to-back fastest laps for Heath McCarthy, and he's got 1.3 seconds in his pocket right now over Nick Jones, but Jones is the one that's got the fight on his hands.
Certainly does, and Partridge takes the running of 2nd position. As they head down towards Dandenong Road, you want to be in 2nd at this point because the tow will not come into effect before the start-finish line. He may have timed this to absolute perfection as they exit Dandenong Road. Jones is going to be close though as they head into the final sequence of turns. The right, the left, and then the left kink to the line.
There they're resuming their battle that they've had for the last 2 or 3 rounds, Partridge and Jones. At the moment, it looks like it's going to be Partridge that'll take second, because you don't get much of an advantage in the toe until you get to the bottom end of the straight. Checkered flag is, of course, out, and Reef McCarthy with another win to increase his lead in the Victorian State Race Series point standings, with second going to Lee Partridge, third going to Jones, and Collinson managing to hang on for 4th place ahead of John Casamati. And then Brandon Taylor ended up 6th in the end, 4.4 seconds adrift of McCarthy, make that 9.4 seconds. So he's only going to lose the 1 spot. So he's actually very lucky that he had enough margin in his pocket that he didn't get hurt too badly from that restart infringement 5-second penalty.
Was helped actually set the fastest lap of the race on the last final lap as well. So a good performance there. Spinello, best performance of the season as well. We've seen him steadily make his way up the order, and that the best result so far for Damien Spinello in car number 49. We've got to say well done as well to Andrew Kieran. Brilliant recovery drive to finish in 8th.
Yeah, he's done really, really well to finish 8th after being toward the rear of the field, after being caught up accidentally in that incident that was no fault of his own, with Gavin Stubbs and Samukra Drapatna rounding out the top 10 there. And then the last of the finishers, Josh Munro. Jason Kay, who's on debut, we'll talk more about him tomorrow. He's actually switched codes, I guess you can call it, from XLs to Vs. Phil Gardner, Mick Fisher, and then Cameron Bell, the last man home, in 15th place. Charlie Richardson we saw on the side of the circuit, down there on the exit of turn 1. And then those that were in the pits, Egan, Filippi, Clifford and Rowe all ended up in the pits, and Malachi Windsor looks like he came to a stop somewhere on the circuit as well after losing that nose cone.
Well, that was certainly an exciting first Formula V race. We've seen that, we've said that so many times this year, haven't we? I expect very much the same tomorrow. Thanks very much, Steve DeFries, for that. Up next, we have the BMW E30s in what will be the final race of the day here at Sandown Motor Raceway.
Welcome back trackside here at the 888 Home Loans Victorian State Circuit Racing Championship. Here is the Sandown International Raceway. As I touched on earlier this morning, massively hard on the right front tyre. You turn into turn 1, it's a left-hander, fully loads the right-hand side of the car. The car gets a temporary relief as you jag to the left, then right, then a big turn up the hill. And let me tell you, if you haven't got 600 horsepower, it's a hill. So that's about 80% of the cars here this weekend don't have that. Turn left, run down to Dandenong Road. John Martin holds the lap record here on 104. and opened in 1962. So a very historical track, a great place to be, a great place to go racing. Heath McAlpine right alongside me, Darren Smith, for this our final race of the day. We'd love to welcome you all back for the 888 Home Loans Victorian State Circuit Racing Championship Round 4 at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Gates will be open around about 7 o'clock for the teams and competitors, so love to see you all back here. Heath, we're about to get underway with the Garagistic, another one-make series, the Garagistic BMW series, of course supported by Traction Tyres and the Melbourne BMW Drivers Club.
Yeah, and this category's grown pretty quickly as well. Normally partnered with another category, but this weekend doesn't have to do that, which is, I know, throughout the Vic State paddock is always a good thing.
Certainly it is. Well, the other thing that these guys did was earlier on in the year when the Lamborghini Super Trofeo event at the Bend, they supported over at the Bend. So they've had a little bit of international exposure earlier on this year as well. There's the grid.
We've got pole position, we've got Royce Sloan, and sharing the front row is Brian Burke in the Trans Rock entry. Then we got Jesse Bryan in the trading garage, the motorists, BMW E30 in third, and then Seth Burkhart's in the KKI Lawyers Tickford Racing entry from 4.
So Burkhart's needs very little introduction in Australian motorsport. Of course, his old man was instrumental in the move from Porsche Cup to the Porsche Sprint Challenge, or the GT3 Sprint Challenge as it was called back in the day. And great to see the next generation of Burkhart's going racing. Simon Leach out of the Spectrum Racing, car number 51, with Shannon Cooper next on the grid there, car number 90, Jeff Bowles, and Ross Plant in the Upflow Racing entry. And if you want to know what Upflow is, it's the most delicious non-alcoholic beer, which never made any sense to me until I tried a bit of the Upflow stuff. Wake up the next day as good as gold.
You're just trying to get a free slab, are you?
No, well, it's good stuff. It's a good drink. 666 with Adam Trapesky in the Rainbow Shoelace Project 3 Hearts Motorsport team. And Martin Taylor in the number 39 rounds out our very compact field. We started with 12 and we are down to 10 cars on track as we speak. Let's have a bit of a look at the form guide here. This is round last year on August the 13th, exactly this weekend. Alex Jory won over Jesse Bryan and Simon Schiff. In the mix there with Jess Bell. She came home in 4th place, and Maddie Thulis into position at number 5 as cars hit the track. Royce Line leading the field around. Royce, of course, made a start in XLs. And there we have the commentators, Darren Smith and Heath McAlpine in the box here for this one. And the number 901 making his way down there, that's Seth Boycarts.
And you've mentioned all those front runners from earlier in the year. Looks like hardly any of them are actually in the field, so it's pretty open this weekend. It
certainly is. Royce is on pole and doing a real good job, actually taking the lead in the championship and embraced every opportunity since joining the E30 Racing, doing a good job. Brian Burke, who has won a lot of races and been in this for a long time. There's a bit of forward information for you for tomorrow. Improved Production will be the first race at 9:10. Vic V8's at 9:35. Gee, they had a big roar this morning with the Vic V8s. The Saloon Car Nationals doing a ripping job so far this weekend. Make sure you're trackside for that one. Heat number 3, National Formula Ford. As always, great entertainment. Porsche 944s, Formula V, E30, and we do it all again in the afternoon.
And we've had a pretty good opening day of racing here at Sandown, Darren, haven't we?
Certainly has. Yep, the State Series always does plenty of entertaining racing. Of course, the broadcast starting as soon as racing starts, but qualifying and early proceedings take place before the broadcast begins, and we just see all of the emergency vehicles starting to peel off and take their infield positions. Gives you an idea of the amount of officials and mobile, let's call it intervention vehicles you need to run a racetrack. I mean, just upstairs from us in race control and timing, there's about 20 people monitoring different bits and pieces. Of course, timing for me is one of the most important, well, the most important job of the track, because that's what we're all here to do. Someone needs to keep an eye on what's going on with the results, who's leading, who's last, etc., etc. So that job, timing or scoring, whatever you want to call it, is just upstairs from us. Handful of people in there, and race control has got all of the important.
You only mentioned timing because you want me to actually bring up your lap record at Winton.
I like your thought there, Heath. You can come back next round, mate. That's good. Yeah, a very long time ago. I like it. I like it. Many commentators don't quite have the respect that you do. Well done, Heath. Thank you. Royce Lane leads the championship over Ash Rogers, Brian Burke, Simon Schiff, Jesse Bryan, Rory Plant, Seth Boycarts and Paul Schiff, Jeff Bowles, and away we go. Royce gets a ripping start. Jesse Bryan looks to go up the middle of the Burke and line, but they just close that gap. So Jesse loves to split the pack. He's going to look to the inside. Royce has got him covered off here. Have a look at the yellow and black Bumblebee as they head down into turn number 1. Jesse getting all squirrely under brakes. Looks like he almost went into the back of Royce's car there, but Brian Burke has swept it around nicely. Gee, have a look at Jesse Bryan jagging left and right. The two cars behind just about sort of staying out of the way. Yeah, it looked like Jesse Bryan was sort of held himself up into turn 1, but he's obviously made some good gains trying to get down the inside at turn 4. He's had to hold on tight there, so his terminal speed going up the hill will suffer here. So Royce did manage to go wide in the number 4, but he's held on, and he should hold on all the way up the top here. Jesse Bryan on the flashes. Have a look at that. He's gone the high beam just to let the young fella know he's going to try and come through, and Jesse will. He'll have a red hot go down the inside at Dandenong Road here. Maybe a little bit too far back, but Jesse doesn't mind sending a Hail Mary from time to time. Well, it looks like he's closed up in that braking zone, and we go back into the field where we've got a variety of drivers. They've sort of spaced out a little bit, unfortunately, in that mid-pack, with Leach leading that small little pack of drivers. Shannon Cooper, the next one in the mix there, in the blue and white car as well, the rainbow car there. Got his high visibility light on, so I guess he's praying for rain, and that would be the only reason you'd be running that. Royce Lyons, has gone up the inside of Brian Burke. And Jesse having no answer for the straight line handling this time, going up the main straight there. So the young fella being held out wide, got the yellow headlights on. The car there just has to adjust his trajectory into turn 2. But as the inside run into turn 4, and this time it's going to be Jesse Bryan that goes wide and has that high corner exit speed. But Royce has just got track position on him. It looked like Jesse Bryan got off that turn 4 or Tirana corner back as it was back in the day. A lot better than the lead 2 who were battling and squabbling through turns 1 and 1, 2, 3 and 4. But Jesse Bryan's going to have a slight look, but hasn't got enough to attack Line. But Line might just have a crack here at Burke. Yeah, and if not, Jesse Bryan in the number 38 is going to have a crack too as well. And the top line concreting car, the Bumblebee in position number 2, holding on. The number 27, Brian Burke, represents this number well, carries a weight of responsibility. Casey Stoner and Alan Jones, world champions with that number. And Brian Burke, at the moment, leading this race, doing his points chase, a world of good. Currently on 65 points to 85, Royce, who's behind him in the championship. Fastest lap to Royce Lyon. He's going to look up the inside here. Change for the lead or not? I think it's a change for the lead. Lyon gets it done this time as demotes Burke to second. Jesse Bryan made a small mistake coming onto the front straight, so hasn't been able to follow Lyon through. And then you've got Burkhardt as well, who is just sitting there watching this all unfold and wondering if he can have a crack. Simon Leach is the next one in the line there. And then we look back to the 24 of Grant Bowles. There's Raw's Plan in the 4-door. One of the only 4-doors that run in the garagistic BMW E30 series. Does a terrific job. Does a lot of work in marketing the series as well. They do have a very good media package. They run come and try days and all sorts of things. They're very much a very close-knit club. and they do have support from the BMW Drivers Club of Victoria as well.
I'm just wondering when the JPS BMW livery is sort of going to make an appearance in these things.
No one has yet. No one has, but you look at the car that Jesse Bryan's driving, the owner of that car obviously likes 4 or 5 different liveries on the one car there, so represents a number of different favourite liveries.
It looks like an all Ford Escort sort of livery from the, during the 1990s when Carlos Sainz
the Rally
was...
Championship,
when
Red Bull, Martini.
Yeah, absolutely. Carlos Sainz was leader of the Ford pack during most of the 90s, so... yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a... It looks pretty wild.
That could be it. I like where you're going. Yeah, H-Mac.
Could be... it's a very, very different looking livery, that's for sure.
Grant Bowles now with just behind him, Rory Plant, the Upflow Racing outfit. And there it is, the grey car, genuine BMW colour on board there. And as I said, does a great job. Looks after the garagistic connection. They've been on board now for about 5 or 6 seasons and always have a great association. The name garagistic derives from the Italian word garagisti, which was first uttered out of the mouth of Enzo Ferrari. It was used as an insult to describe the British racing teams that came out of McLaren, etc., etc. So the garagistic out of North America, and they were termed as garage teams, and this is what we're talking about here at the BMW E30s, the grassroots of Australian motorsport.
I wonder if Enzo Ferrari was talking about Ken Tyrrell's team, seeing it was out of a lumber shed out the back of his timber yard.
Frank Williams, Jim Surtees, all of them, who'd name them. They're all those garagisty outfits, whereas he had his own car factory, and Enzo, and what a great heritage they've left for Formula One and the world of automotive.
And it's good to see a few P-plater drivers as well. So this series is very much catering for those guys that are looking to hopefully get their first start in motorsport as well.
So we've got 4 laps completed. There is just on 8 minutes left on the time certain clock for this race. Royce Lyon has gone fastest again, a 1:26.716. Just have a quick glimpse back into history, a 1:41. So that was last time here, and then a 1:33. So that's sort of where we're chasing, was in the damp. So 1:27. Going back 2 years ago as well, so we're sort of in the area of that sort of lap record pace. I can't confirm or deny whether it is or not because the timing screen is not giving us that bit of information at the moment. Here's this battle with Trapitsky and Taylor, 9th and 10th on the road. 0.7 of a second here. Now this is true testament to that grassroots aspect, Heath, that you were touching on. These guys are 9th or 10th, or second last and last in the race. Let's call them 9th and 10th. This is grassroots racing. Give them a top 10 finish and talk it up. Was talking to a couple of people recently, including Brett Youlden, who knocked on the door of a top 10 at Bathurst for a couple of times back in the VL Group A SS days, and that's a long time ago. But guys like that hold a top 10 finish dear to their heart, even though it was in the big race, the big dance at Mount Panorama. But top 10 finish for anyone is important.
And you never know, these guys might end up there potentially.
Exactly.
If not, they'll end up in a bigger race like maybe the Bathurst 6 hour or, potentially the 12 hour.
And I reckon Royce Lyon, who's leading this race, that's his trajectory. He's come out of Excels, a young bloke. We don't have the Excels here this weekend, but Cadell Ambrose is doing an absolute ripping job braining that series here in the Victorian Championship this year. He was a good mate with, is a good mate with Cadell, but has made the step into the rear drive, better balance, faster cars, and I guess Cadell, once money starts to come in, the family will look at doing another category as well.
And unfortunately, these guys are spaced out a bit, or fortunately if you're Lynn, but Line, but it's interesting to see that the times, you mentioned a 1:27, while most of the top 3 are pretty much right on the mark, with line actually dropping into the 26s, which is a pretty impressive time around here in one of these E30s.
Well, the good thing is he's doing it on his own. He's got a handy, just under 4-second lead to Brian Burke here. So he's leading the race, and now he's just concentrating on line and form and getting around the track, making sure he's hitting all the markers, as Jesse Bryan still remains with the high beams ablaze, using every trick in the book. And here comes the 901 of Seth Borkarts. This is a very, very nicely prepared car. Looks the goods, genuine BMW colour there. And being driven very, very well by Seth. Just making his way in the world as well in motorsport. And Klaus Kenny lawyers. And got the right team on board. Graham Bell, the Bell Motorsport outfit, emblazoned across the rear window of that car. Although we don't have any Bells racing here this weekend. Jess has been the main competitor, but her brothers have also raced, and Graham himself has also raced in this series. In fact, Graham's instrumental in the series over the years. But strangely enough, we have no Bells racing in the BMW E30s here this weekend.
And we've got Bowles here. He's still leading that small little pack. It seems like a nice, comfortable gap between the next two, with Plant still right behind. He's sort of working towards closing that gap. It's now 1.4 seconds. So with 3 or 4 laps to go until the race is finished, he's still got time. And this is 9th and 10th as well, still going at it, these guys.
This is good. This is a good race for these guys to get nice and close with each other and race it out here. Just get the feeling at the moment that Trapsky has got Taylor right where he needs him. So the 666 outfit has got the devil on board, that's for sure, with that number. Love that number. It was synonymous with particular Lamborghini Diablo that won a big race here once. Paul Stokel at the wheel, so running the 666 hopefully is a good omen for the entry here this weekend. And Adam Trapsky there in the all-white BMW E30, and in behind is Taylor, working very, very hard to stay with him, you'd have to suggest at this point in time. Flaggy's just keeping a good eye out there. No blue flag being shown yet, so the threat isn't exactly real from the 39 just at this point in time. And Royce Lyon has just gone fastest lap again.
He's just reeling him out.
Yeah, just railing him. Well, over 6 seconds a lap now, and another fastest lap, 1:26.44. So what's that, 4 laps in a row, just ticking the boxes, getting faster and faster as each lap goes by. That's
good signs, nice consistency. If you're pushing yourself, it's good to know that you've got that, you're hitting that mark consistently, setting the lap, the fast lap. Jesse Bryan's been able to lower his time as well to a 1 minute 27.7389 as well.
Interestingly enough, just in the back of shot there, we're watching across turn 4 as these two cars battling it out for 9th and 10th on the road. The leader is just coming up that short chute between turn 3 and turn 4. Trapsky, a bit of a lock up there, so he's starting to feel the pressure. Still 2.5 minutes left to go. Got a call on the fitness, call on the last reserves of energy.
And concentration as well.
Certainly
concentration
is.
Will be key coming into these final stages.
Whoa, there's a big slide there by Taylor.
A bit eager on the loud pedal.
Yeah, now that's going to affect the entire run down the straight. Here we are back into second position. There's the Transrock outfit, and that's a Brian Burke at the wheel.
Jesse Bryan's definitely closing. He's cut 0.3 of a second last lap out too. So this might be a close one at the end for the final 2 spots on the podium.
2 laps still to go here. No last lap board being held to the field though. Royce Lyon, for the first time in 5 laps, hasn't decreased his time, but still has kept it under a 1:26. There is no one else in the garagistic field that's been able to dip into the 1:26s.
He's set a lap time 1.1 seconds faster than anybody else, which is pretty impressive.
It's very impressive. Heath, 8.44 seconds. We don't see this sort of gap in E30 racing very often indeed. It's quite rare that we see someone run away with this, and I've got to say, young Royce Lyon's got to be congratulated for his level of application and concentration, and it's just another one of those names of a young racer that we need to keep an eye on. There he is there in the yellow and a black car, referred to it as the Bumblebee. I guess it was more his XL that was more Bumblebee-esque, but certainly any yellow and black car tends to get called that these days.
Do you see more people or more drivers making the same switch from XLs into the BMW E30s?
I would suggest that there's probably 2 one-make categories you could go to if you wanted to remain in a one-make category. It'd be 944 or BMW E30s. Both are fairly similar racing package, and I guess it would come down to personal preference. Do you want the Porsche badge or do you want the BMW badge? I'd be happy with either.
Yeah, neither. me too. Me too.
German thoroughbred pieces of kit. You know, the lap times are comparable, and I guess you just look at it and think, well, where's the variety of tracks and things like that? They both all run on the same sort of track, so it's personal preference. And I guess one of the things that you look at, Heath, is purchase price of a car or build price of a car, and whichever one you can make work in your budget, then that's the way you go.
Absolutely. I mean, Mike Bailey, who races in GT World Challenge at the moment, he's actually come out of this category, and he came out with his, if you can, he's lucky enough to have a Bentley or two. So, he's now partnering up with Brett Hobson in a GWR run at Mercedes. So, it's a bit of a jump, and you don't have to follow that, but it also shows that there is a little bit of a pathway there if possible.
Absolutely. One-make racing, is there's always someone that's got an advantage, and that all comes down to setup, and that's what you've got to learn. If you can set the car up better, if you've got someone that can help you tune your shocker, if you've got someone like a Rick Kemp in your corner or a centerline suspension that can help you tune the car better, that's where these gains are made, because excuse me, in the engine bay and under the bonnet, you certainly can't do anything outside the rules. It's how you apply it on the track, and that's down to driving and tuning of the suspension package.
Yeah, it's very much these one-make categories are pretty tight on the regulations, so it highlights the skill of the driver more so than any other category. So and also I suppose in a way setup too. So as you mentioned, so one-make categories look like they're not going to die off too soon. Obviously there's Toyotas and Porsche 944s as well this weekend among XLs, and Pulsars up north as well. So there's plenty going on as we see line lap the 2 battling cars that we were talking about earlier.
The ones you just mentioned, the Nissan-based, the BMW-based and the Porsche-based series can also be enthusiast-driven. The support of this particular championship from the BMW Drivers Club of Melbourne is they throw their weight around it, so they love to come to the track and see the cars racing. Maybe everyone doesn't want to do that. Maybe they want to do a cars and coffee event or something like that and enjoy their vehicles like that. Totally understood. 2.5 litre inline 6-cylinder 5-speed manual gearbox. They run the Yokohama A050 medium tyre R-spec tyres on these cars. Limited modifications to ensure affordability, and the checkered flag goes to Royce Lyon. Comes to the line there in the top line concreting car and gets a really good run for it. There's the 2 back markers that were fighting it out for 9th and 10th. Brian Burke will come home beautifully into position number 2. Jesse Bryan fills the last spot on the podium with his lights still ablaze. So that old trick of burning your retina out with high beam didn't work this time round for Jesse. But the number 27, he'd be pretty happy with himself, Brian, being able to hold off Jesse Bryant. Waving to the flaggies there, that's great too, isn't it? Across the line now is Seth Boycart's Simon Leach brings the number 51 to the line. Great to see the 901 getting home well and truly inside the top 5, in fact, just off the podium. Bit of work to do, in fact, for those, for Seth Boycarts and Simon Leach. They weren't able to get out of the 129s in that race, whereas the 3 cars in front were 27s and a 26 for our race leader. They continue to come to the line. That'll be Grant Bowles, Rory Plant, Shannon Cooper, and Trapsky and Taylor already crossed the line. There's confirmation of results.
Yeah, and Royce Lyon was convincingly a winner by 10.2 seconds from Brian Burke. Jesse Bryan, Seth Burkhardt was a further 18 seconds behind those two battling for the podium, with Simon Leach, Jeff Bowles, Rory Plant, Shannon Cooper, and Adam Trapsky got the edge on that battle with Martin Taylor to 9th and 10th.
Well, thank you very much, Heath McAlpine, for your company here today. I'm looking forward to going more tomorrow with the 888 Homeloans Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships. Improved production cars will be on the track. There's the message on the screen for tickets available at the gate tomorrow. Improved production will get underway at 9:10. Vic V8, the Right Way Industrial Saloon Car Nationals race number 3 for the weekend, will be on at 10 o'clock. Formula Ford, 944s, Formula V and E30 will round out the morning session. And we do it all again in the afternoon, live and free on the Blendline TV networks. But make sure you get yourself out trackside to the 888 Home Loans. Big thank you to all of the members down there of the Australian Sports Sedan Association of Victoria for promoting this event for round 4 of the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships. A big shout out to everyone who's joined us here trackside and on the live streaming. To the volunteers all the way around the track, thank you so much for continuing to turn up week in, week out. Sunshine, rain, hail or shine, whatever it might be. A big thank you to all of our volunteer officials. The administration team and the race committee that put this whole show together, tirelessly working right up until gates opened yesterday morning. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Look forward to seeing you then.